Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Lightbringers, a Guild Wars 2 podcast, where we talk about the things in Guild Wars 2, the MMORPG that we enjoy, maybe on a daily basis, maybe on a weekly basis, or whatever basis that you would like to. And I have some awesome guests with me today. Why is every intro so bad? I'm just like...
At least I didn't interrupt you this time.
I thought you were doing great. You're just doubting yourself.
Welcome to my world. And many of our worlds. Episode 5, he says, as his voice climbs. It's been a couple of weeks. Been about 2 or 3 weeks. Normally it goes, it's every 2 weeks-ish. It just depends what's going on. School's crazy. Had to delay things. But we're talking about Heart of Thorns this week. It's the first Guild Wars 2 expansion that came out a fair while ago, to be fair. But we do have epic guests. Yes, and INKS has that on the back of his wall. I think that's the wall. But we have some epic guests we're going to talk about first. BirdofChess, hello, how are you? BirdofChess has been here before.
Hello, yes, doing great. Glad to be back.
Awesome. What do you do? Where do you do it? People may not have seen the show or heard the show before. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I am also an ArenaNet partner, and I've been playing Guild Wars 2 for about 2 years now. But I have a history of playing MMOs. I just sort of recently managed to find Guild Wars and was really excited about it and fell in love. So we've been broadcasting it since then. I'm a big MMO variety streamer with a focus on Final Fantasy XIV and Guild Wars 2, but we do a little bit of other stuff, ESO and Warframe being a few of those. I really like to keep up with what's going on in the genre, and we have a big community sort of oriented focus where we do a lot of events. We run a guild, and in all of our games, we like to sort of help players get connected with what they love and the community that they love, and learn how to do everything from raiding to, just even more mundane things like how you level and progress. So we're always happy to help people out.
We said reading? I was like, you teach people how to read? That's amazing.
Great. I can't
Wow.
help but reading, but there are plenty of places you can go for that.
That is a lot of work. Reading whilst raiding. Yeah.
Reading whilst raiding is the hardest of all arts. But...
Yes. It's true. It's true.
Yes,
awesome to have you on again. Again. We also have MMOX. Or INKS, sorry. I'm not sure which you like to be called now.
Just INKS is fine. Or INKS. Don't call me Just INKS. That's
It's INKS. How you doing, my man?
plain INKS. Or just, yeah.
There's nothing plain about you, sir. There's nothing plain about you whatsoever. That's a different conversation.
Not too much is going on. I'm a Destiny 2 streamer. And, no, I'm just kidding. I don't stream Destiny 2. That's just silly. I do podcasts. So this one and maybe some others out there once in a while. That's pretty much it.
Sounds good. Okay. He plays Guild Wars 2 as well. It does sometimes stream. There you go. All the info is going to be in the description. And also in the chat and Twitch, if you want to do !! T... whatever I put it as, TLB. That's it.
Nice.
You can find out the links for everyone. It's a bit shorter than the Lightbringers. INKS, awesome to have you on again, sir. Thank you very much for coming on. We have Boots as well. Finally, he's been on before as well. How you doing, my friend? Tell us a bit about yourself. What do you do? Where do you come from? When was the last time you had a haircut?
A long time ago. It feels like forever. I'm Boots. You can find me at YouTube, World of Enders, YouTube. So I guess it's YouTube/World of Enders. Do some videos usually. Do some videos, usually build videos, fun, stupid build videos, and do some things with Wooden Potatoes over on his channel a lot, and also sometimes podcasts, as exemplified here. That's about
exemplified here.
Who is Wooden Potatoes?
That's a good question. I feel like I do more videos on his channel than on my channel these days.
You should do a video. Who is Wooden Potatoes? Pudding potatoes. There you go. Thank you as well for coming back on. I appreciate it, all of you, very much so. It's always the first challenge of trying to get a podcast going. Who's going to come on? What are you going to talk about? When's it going to be? And can everyone be there at the same time? That is difficult, especially when you're all in different places. Although we're all kind of in the similar time zone, so it's all right. It's not too bad. So, Heart of Thorns, Guild Wars 2 first expansion, 2015, right? That was 2015. 5 years ago. 5 years ago.
Gosh,
That was a long time
Time
ago.
flies.
that's
Is it
so
really?
many.
I feel
Wow.
old. The first thing someone says, Obsidian. Thank you, mate. I feel even older. So in January of 2015, there was we didn't know there was going to be an expansion. There was questions, there was wonderings, there was Reddit posts, there was leaks, there was all the drama behind that. I remember that. That was always a fun time. And then all of a sudden, we're at PAX South. There's me, there's Aurora Peachy, there's Bogotter, there's Chronic Gamer. I don't know if anyone remembers Chronic Gamer. Legend. I used to cast ESL with. And we were sitting on a panel, and we're talking about what we think is coming up. And there's like, what was there, 90,000 people watching on Twitch or something stupid like that. It was pretty crazy. And then all of a sudden, they get on stage, and they're like, there's an expansion. I think there's people doing things. I think INKS and Boots, you were doing podcasts or something at the time live. I think you were.
Probably
Right?
just videos. Yeah, was that okay? Was PAX South that time where
It was
the
the
person
first
came
PAX.
in?
Yes.
Was when they went into the audience
Yes.
and asked, "What do you think's going to come in?"
They
Thank
foolishly
you.
went into
The
the
first
audience.
thing we mentioned on the podcast. Not terrible PvE or something like that, that guy said, wasn't it?
PVE that doesn't suck.
I mean,
There
they
you go.
delivered though. They delivered.
Something
Yeah.
like that. That was, yeah, there was that comment. I think, is Jennifer Hale? Was her who went into the audience and she kind of
Yeah.
interviewed the guy and she was like, shit. You can just tell in her head, she's just like, oh,
Apparently,
Jesus.
they have never seen the red shirt guy from the Blizzard conventions.
yes.
They didn't learn their lesson from asking the audience in that one either.
Well, she didn't pick someone with a red shirt, so she didn't know.
Yeah,
True.
that's true.
But yeah, then
Can
they.
you imagine for a second? Can you just imagine being that guy?
No.
Jennifer Hale comes over to you, and do you think he knows right away? He's been planning it. He's like, "Oh, I hope she picks me. I hope," and he just is like, "PvE content that doesn't suck."
I just don't know how you look. I don't know how you look into Jennifer Hale's just voice acting goddess face and say anything. Like, even remember the question that you had, because in your mind, you're just like, Commander Shepard is here and I love her. But you're like, oh, not only am I going to not ask a question, I'm also going to be a salt boy.
Oh, God.
And the best part is they cut away fairly quickly, but just long enough for you to just see Jennifer
take
Hale's
it
face,
in.
and she was like, "Okay, then, moving on."
I tell you, that was just like, I was sitting there at the event and I was just like, I think we were talking to Ruby about that because I think it was before the panel. I can't remember, but like, it was just like this. Oh no, please don't be awful. And I was just like, because I was excited about the event and like just before, like the crowd was really quiet, and this is in like my casting heyday, and there's like so many people in the crowd, and I'm like standing at the front just like building hype like I did on cast. I was like just going mental, and like everyone was cheering and standing up. It was such a the event was amazing. Like it was the best Guild Wars 2 event, and then like, and I don't want to say like PAX last year wasn't good, but like in comparison, it was very different. And it was just like, that was the pinnacle of, I don't know if it's marketing or just goodness of
It was
hype.
at events. Yeah.
It was awesome. It was
I don't
so
know, man.
good.
PAX East just a little bit later was kind of fun too.
Well, that was different though, because that wasn't online, was it? Like that wasn't
No.
like an announcement.
Yeah.
That was like the event. The booth was their best booth. Absolutely, that booth was wicked. Boots and INKS, you were both there. INKS did a bit on the stage. Actually, I
did
think
a
you
bit.
both did a bit. Yeah.
I did a bit. It was very awkward.
Oh dear, how come? Why? What?
I don't know, 'cause I didn't
We're
quite
just
know
talking
what to
about the
talk about.
awkwardness of everything right now.
Well, I was awkward. It wasn't awkward.
Oh.
I was awkward, as usual. It was a lot of fun though. Yeah, Ruby asked me questions about what I do, kind of like what you did at the beginning of this thing, and I tried not to be awkward there as well, but I don't know about that. And,
I need to find this footage.
Yeah, I don't think there's footage of it. It was just like getting up in front of a lot of people waiting in line to play a demo of Heart of Thorns. So we had a captive audience. And
Right, I remember that. That was going round the corner of the booth and over to another booth at some point. That was pretty cool. And
It's amazing.
Sorry, go.
I was gonna say, no, it's just amazing that Heart of Thorns was such a like blindside. I mean, the fact that it just, came like suddenly the announcement happened and then all these events kind of kicked off of it. It's definitely been, it seems like a tradition almost that people seem caught off guard by the Guild Wars 2 X packs. And I mean, I can't wait to see what happens even looking ahead now with our next one that's going to be coming up, because this is a big thing. It's been a while and I can't wait. It's going to be so fun.
And it might still be a while as well, to be fair.
It's going to be interesting.
Year. Yeah,
definitely, probably the pandemic's going to slow a few things down, I'm guessing.
Oh, I mean, yeah. They are putting out the new episode without audio,
which is impressive.
So
right,
like,
but you don't think that they would really extend, like, let's say a year from now, they're not going to extend something like that to the like.
They're not going to put the audio. Yeah, no.
Let's pretend instead of this episode, it was expansion time. They would just wait to release, I would think.
Audio is...
They wouldn't release an expansion with no audio because of COVID.
Yeah.
Obviously, there are constraints like to production. Like, I don't want to say there isn't constraints. It is a lot easier to put... Like, it's a lot easier for them to coordinate rather than people in a factory or something, where you have to physically be there to do the thing. Obviously, there are resources and everything else, and they can transport stuff to home, have meetings. And I'm not saying it's easy because you're not with those people in person. You can't just nip over to their office, say hello, do the things. But, like, they're proving that they're able to get the work done. And obviously, the work on this episode would have been finished ages ago. And, audio is one of the last things that gets done, which is why they can do it. It would be this episode I don't think would have been as impacted as the next couple. Probably maybe not even the next one specifically, but the one after. I think I can't remember what their production timeline is.
Yeah, just not being able to go in is one thing, because I'm sure some of them could work from home for sure. But there's a productivity thing also. It's difficult to work from home sometimes, and
absolutely.
Yeah, so.
Distractions and everything else, yeah.
I mean, and then some people like just flourish within that environment, but it's definitely, I think, less reliable, or you just don't know how everybody's going to react, and coordinating a team across that is, I'm sure, just crazy difficult.
Exactly. And then how the creative juices flow and all that kind of stuff when it all comes to that.
Yes, and especially since video game making is a very collaborative process. So I'm sure it's very tough to do it all separated.
So we'll see what the episode's like when those come along, and it'll be the expansion, because who knows? I mean, we're in Washington. Washington's a little bit stricter. Well, I say stricter, but I would say they have some sense. Is probably what I would add to that. In terms of letting people go to work, and ArenaNet are very what they're like as a company. They think about their employees and don't want them to get this and pass it on, obviously, and everything else. So they're taking care of their people, which is good. But obviously in America, it's a little bit of a different state to what it's like in the rest of the world. Although, to be fair, if you're in England, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Soha. I'm sorry. I wouldn't have been able to avoid awfulness. If I was in England, it would have been terrible. I'm in America, it's still terrible. Everything is terrible. Everything is good as well at the same time. Anyway, can I talk about Heart of Thorns? Sorry. Oh, good lord.
Oh my god.
That was bad. I didn't even mean that. I'm normally so positive. Where did that come from? Sorry, I think I just saw something. I just saw something about
Jebro.
I'm never negative. It's okay. Everyone knows I'm fully positive all the time.
There's a lot of really good stuff coming. But yeah, I mean, how this will affect so many things in the gaming industry, we have to wait and see. And I mean, it's great because I think as players right now, we have more time than ever to play the games that we love and reflect on. I mean, things like Heart of Thorns here and these events and the future of games as we sort of eventually take off out of this, right?
Mm-hmm. Just as I took a drink, I got damn it! I was like, she's gonna continue.
I waited for you to take a drink, and I was like, and cut, and
she knows
done.
me too well. Bloody hell. Okay. Well, yes, and hopefully, you know, this won't. I mean, I say hopefully it won't impact it too much, but I think it's just going to be, you know, it's the ArenaNet way. You know, it's going to be here when it's here, and you know, just lump it, to be fair, and it'll be worth it in the end. I mean, Heart of Thorns, and that's the thing, you know, Heart of Thorns. That's what we're here to talk about. Actually, going to talk about the expansion because yes, the build-up was amazing. There was some epic stuff that happened before the game came out. Creators got to stream and play around and make videos before the expansion came out about elite specializations. We had a big meetups and stuff that people went to. There were other events that people went to. There was loads of build up before the expansion, and it was very good. It was very good. Not the same for Path of Fire, I would say personally. And we don't have to talk about that specifically right now because that could take a while. And we're talking about Heart of Thorns. But release came for Heart of Thorns, and obviously we knew there was so much stuff to come. For most MMORPGs, you get mounts from the beginning, pretty much. No mounts in Guild Wars 2. But gliders were a thing. You know, we knew that there was going to be some gliders. We knew there was going to be a no World v World map. We knew they were going to bring in raids, which they said in the past. And Reader actually linked me a video from 2012 with Eric. God damn it, I forget his surname every time. Eric and Colin Jansen, they were talking about the game. And I was like, wow. Is it Planet? Yeah. Yeah. He's dude. He's on Crucible. And I've met him many times, and I keep forgetting his surname.
They're all on Crucible.
They are. They are.
Yeah.
And it's and they were talking about the game, and they were talking about Endgame, and they were talking about pushing people into raids and dungeons at Endgame, and not wanting that to be a thing. Reader, thank you for linking that video. It's very useful. And they changed their minds. They changed their minds. Like raids, you don't have to do raids to be.
Why do you think that is?
Why do you think they changed their minds? Well, this is the question I was going to ask you guys. Don't steal my damn question. Well, and that's going to be in a minute. Wait, hold your horses. Hold your horses, okay, folks. Hold that thought in mind. I'm just going to go through quickly the things which are coming. Hold that thought. We can go to that. New Borderland in World v World. Story, maps, mastery points. Horizontal progression, not vertical up levels. They didn't increase the level cap. And we were all like, what are they going to do with that? They did something completely different. Guild halls. Yes, they're there.
I think there's going to be one thing that you're going to forget.
Stronghold. I'm not going to forget Stronghold. How am I going to forget Stronghold? I did one of the main videos I did on the release of that was Stronghold, mate. And who is more upset probably than anyone other than the devs that didn't work out? And that's going to be me. Because I was hyped for that and it was fun. And then it was just playing. It was not as fun. It's not expected, unfortunately. Legendaries through different means, getting those. And bits and bobs, other stuff that was added that I may have forgotten. But those were the main key features. Unless I've missed something. Revenant, new class, elite specializations. That's two pretty big things, to be fair. So there was a lot. The most that's been added to the game in one time, and pre that, they added things like wardrobe transmutation stuff. They added.
Right. They did the whole overhaul to the skill system in order to make expansions possible.
Oh god, yeah, they went from 5 or 6 trait lines?
5 trait lines that were point buy system.
Yes. That was
to the elite specialization trait lines that so then it was in a point buy. It was just 3 different things that you were stuck in 3 at all times after that.
Yeah, I remember that because it was before. It was like 5. So you used to have 5 when we used to do PvP. I remember Guardian. There was just 1 point you would put in to 1 line so you could get the reviver trait to get the bubble. And then, yeah, 3 lines. And everyone was like, oh, it's a better build versatility and all this stuff. I was like, no, still fine.
I may have been one of those people who liked the versatility you could do with the point buy system. But like, as I was like, oh man, okay, so let me just calculate this. You have 100,000 possible builds with the original system and only 90 something possible builds with the new system. But no, I think it was a good change overall.
Yeah,
And
helped balance a bit. Gonna say a bit, but yeah, that was a massive change, and then just the general, I guess, and this is where I guess we can bring raids and stuff as well. But like for you guys, what was the biggest? Do I ask that question? Because then we're gonna go over the others. We're gonna go over stuff first. If I do that, you could go ahead. No, I don't want to do that. And they will offer always awesome conversation, but I'm going to have a little bit of order just to make sure that I know where I am at myself. Okay, so elite specializations and new class, Revenant, first of all. So new class, Revenant. Oh, that's nice, isn't it? BirdofChess, that's lovely, isn't it? You like a little bit of Revenant?
I do like a little bit of Revenant. Revenant is one of those classes that surprised me because so I think out of all of us, I'm the only one that didn't play Heart of Thorns at release. Mm-hmm. So I played it.
That's important as well. Yes.
Which I'm actually kind of glad because I think there are some definite kind of perspectives from like coming into it later versus like having been there when it dropped that I'm excited to talk about as we go on. But I did come to it later. So it had been out for a while. I started playing about 2 years ago and then went through everything linearly. And Revenant is one of the ones that,
like even from main game, like story as well. Oh, that's awesome.
I did everything in order. I did all the living seasons. It was super fun. Everybody was trying to get me to get them out early, and I was like, I'd rather die over and over. No, I just went through it.
You played the whole Heart of Thorns without a map.
I played the whole Heart of Thorns without a mount as it was meant to be played. And I'm really glad I did, to be honest, because I think that like the map experience is very different that way.
It is.
Yeah,
but Revenant is one that really surprised me because as I got more and more into Guild Wars 2, I felt with the lore, like honestly, and I think that people think of new classes as being something that's really specific to like new play styles and new mechanics and new possibilities for PvP and matchups and things like that. But what really drew me to Revenant first was just the fact that there were all of these incredible figures in the world of Guild Wars 2 that suddenly I could have contact with in this like new way. And I love it. Like, I honestly think the class is so cool because of that, especially as we keep looking forward and, you know, things like Shiro, which we thought maybe we left behind with Guild Wars 1, but now we know we may have Kantha on the horizon. Like, there are these great possibilities with the way that class lets you connect to the lore. And then the playstyle is honestly really fun. And I was surprised by how much I liked it, although I do hear that some of it has been maybe a little bit toned down because some of the combo fields that it used to do were much like more like you had to do the thing and it was huge damage and it was really important to the like play style. But I liked what I kind of experienced of that even after the nerfs. And it's become a class that I really wanted to dig more into just because I found it strong both thematically and fun to play, honestly.
Yeah, when you talk about the lore like that, that makes me realize that maybe, the Revenant is kind of, in a way, the fan service class. Because it goes back into all the things that people from Guild Wars 1 remember. And it really is something, it's great. I like it that way.
Yeah. And that makes the players, because I didn't play Guild Wars at the time, more interested in that past, you know, that past game as well, and invested a little bit more into the future. And I think that's what they do, isn't it? They do it a little bit differently. It's not like just, there's this class you've never heard of, and they're, you know, in the underbelly of the world, and no one ever knows what they've been about, and now they're here, and they're magical. But you know,
hold on a second though.
I mean, they are, yeah. But I'm talking about like the entirety, like the lore and stuff. Like you know about all these different things. But
is that something we want to talk about though? Because there has been a large conversation about Ritlock coming back with the Revenant powers. Kind of off when asked about how did you get those powers for a while. Did they ever fully explain how they got the Revenant powers?
Didn't they? Okay, well,
I
just
don't-
scrap everything
yeah.
I just said.
So-
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. I was actually like, it is this mystical thing for another place. I think I was just talking about the lore. I think I was just talking about the past and the mists and like that kind of stuff. But you're right.
Yeah,
You are
it's
right.
not like, I mean, in a sense, you're right. Both right. Yeah,
No,
like,
no, I'm
the idea
actually
that it
wrong.
is- I mean,
It's
well, but
okay.
the thing is that it's like it's almost a new class that has been formed through like this conglomeration of experience of spirits,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is
yeah.
really fascinating. So it's not like it's without grounds or basis in the world, which is what I think you were getting at, Jeb.
Yeah.
It's not like they just suddenly are like, oh yeah, for generations, did you not look back there in that room? That's where we kept the revenants. Like, it's not that per se, but it definitely does have this like sense of mysticism to it.
What is
Yeah.
back there?
It's grounded in the magic of Tyria because Tyria is the magic is all based around the mists, and you're calling upon fabrics of the mist. Yeah, you're that's what you are. You're a mist warrior, essentially.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, but absolutely, yeah. That's a good point. I like that the Revenant was not in the background. I guess maybe it was. But thank you for trying to bring me back from the precipice there as well. I appreciate that. Yeah, that's weird because it is kind of what you say as well. Anyway, I'm gonna I divulge. But it is a fun class. I mean, don't know, Inks. How did you feel about the Revenant when you first saw it? Did you like it? Do you like it?
The Revenant was my main for 2 years.
Yeah. Cool.
Until
you deleted it.
Well, no, I didn't delete that character actually.
Okay.
No, they
Deleted it. Amazing.
The Revenant, unfortunately, was originally it was a great DPSer, simplistic in its in its way of DPSing, which I liked, but they nerfed its damage, which okay, but it's still an auto include because you needed some of the other skills that it provided. But then they nerfed Mesmer, and when they did that, you had to, or Chronomancer. When they did that, you had to take 2 Chronomancers, and when you had to take 2 Chronomancers to make up for the nerf, that made Revenant entirely invalid.
So this was raids you're talking about.
Raids. Yeah, this is
talking
raids.
about raids.
So I gave up on it and haven't touched it since,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
back in the good old day where like 16k DPS was the be all end all.
Yeah, so what Inks is talking about, if you don't raid in Guild Wars 2 or you've not played Guild Wars 2 before, because new players definitely check out this podcast. Raids came with Heart of Thorns as well, and he's talking about, the different things that are available and classes bring, and making space, and Revenant may have got a little bit toned out of that. Now the thing is, the thing is when MMOs and people bring out something brand new, class-wise, this is pretty much in every single MMO I've ever played, and maybe you've ever played as well. And I'm not sure if this is just an opinion or if this is actual fact anymore. But the class that is new is always most powerful for a while. And that just feels like almost an intentional thing sometimes, to a degree. And
it is.
I feel like it is now. Yeah, it's like when Necro came out for Elder Scrolls Online. That was crazy powerful, still is. And then it gets a little bit fixed, and then everyone's kind of like, oh well, they didn't have time to balance. It's like they know what they're doing. It's a new thing. It's not massively intentional. They don't try it. They're not like, yeah, well, we're just gonna make them gods among people, and they're just gonna be, wrecking everything. But they were pretty strong at the start, and this, even today, they're pretty decent. I mean, in PvP and obviously balances, and this was 5 years ago, for God's sake. So now, after a while, it takes a while, and yeah, of course, they're not in a world where all the players and all the people have got these builds together, and they go out there and talk about how it might be a little bit strong and in a very respectful and thought-provoking way. And then, feedback is given, they balance the shit out of it. But yeah.
Revenant's the development of Revenant was interesting compared to all the other classes because it came out in the expansion.
Yeah.
They revealed the Revenant before the expansion, and revealed its gameplay a little bit beforehand too. And they actually
That's right.
took information from players from the player base and switched up how the Revenant played before the expansion came out. Originally, the Revenant did not have weapon swapping. Originally, the Revenant had one weapon, and you didn't have two sets of weapons. And then people
That was in the
were
preview as well, I think.
that was in the preview,
Think
yeah.
So yeah.
That was in the preview, and then people were like, "That's a little bit low because not only do you not have weapon swapping as Revenant, but also you're stuck with your utility skills based on your utility skills, heal and elite, all based on your current legendary."
Yeah.
So a lot of people felt that was going to be very limiting for a Revenant in building, and I guess they were right because they said, "You know what? You're right. Here you go. Here's weapon swapping. Hopefully that helps." And it is what it is today.
Yeah. I forgot about that.
That's like one of the really cool things. Actually, Heart of Thorns in general, that kind of brings me to one of the points I wanted to bring up. Heart of Thorns in general was a very collaborative with the player base expansion. Because before Heart of Thorns, in a lot of ways, because before Heart of Thorns came out, they had all of those what were they called, CDIs or something like that?
Yeah.
On the forums.
Yes.
They were asking the player base for input on what they wanted for certain things in the game. One of them was hardcore dungeons. And from that CDI, I think it was called CDIs, Community Development Initiative. Yeah, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
They basically narrowed down on exactly what raids were going to be, how many players in the party, how hard it's going to be, etc. And I don't know if we've had something like that since.
We have.
We have?
Yeah, there was Wild v Wild stuff and PvP stuff.
Oh, that's kind of rare for an MMO, honestly, because granted, while there is usually some, obvious testing that they do, or that, a new X pack or stuff like that may have with different alpha beta phases and things like that, it's rare to see like a developer just explicitly reach out and be like, what do you want from this thing? Typically it's already pretty well outlined. They've already maybe put some feelers out. You generally kind of get what's coming. But it is, I think you can feel in Guild Wars 2 in a lot of places, even going to some of our balance and things now, where there is like a very direct connection to things that have been talked about in the game that then reflect some sort of change or development in the actual release itself, which is pretty cool, I think, honestly.
I think it makes me wonder about why they don't, but they are another MMO that doesn't have a PCS either. And as well, and I know that's way, like you say, and the point is, it's before or during production, and PCS is normally when they update the thing is about to come out. So your feedback is mainly bugs. It's not like production specifically.
I think one of the reasons why CDIs are a difficult thing to do in general is because the player base is large, and it'll be very hard for people reading the feedback to sift through the good and the bad points and decide what to go with.
Yes.
And even there might be like overwhelming support for some feature that they can't deliver on, and they don't want to maybe get people's hopes up in those cases. I don't know.
Yeah, and sometimes the features are not great that people want. Let's just be honest.
Yeah.
There are many times where the player base is short-sighted in a way that they may not even realize, and then like to have something in that way implemented into the game would actually be really bad.
Yeah.
It's tough because as players we do have a voice, and I think should have a voice, and it's great, especially with things like Heart of Thorns, that there was such an active connection, because you want to feel like this game that you're connected to and that you play and that you're excited about, and especially with an MMO that will follow you for years of your life if you stay with it, right? You want to feel like there's a connection there. But there are times where development and developers have to look beyond just that picture of what might be popular in the player base, and then decide like what can we do with our knowledge to look forward 3 steps or 4 steps, and then develop something that will work for us, but also maybe, I don't know, surprise the player base in a lot of ways.
I think we were surprised with raids. Raids is the most surprising thing. That was like,
I like Guild Wars 2 raids. I have a lot of thoughts, and I'm excited to talk about that.
Yeah, they are good. Yeah, I've got a lot to say about that as well. I think at the beginning, I was. We can talk about raids actually. Are we good? We good with Revenant? Are we happy with Revenant? I enjoyed it. I didn't really talk about Revenant much. I was excited about a new class. I didn't realize that was probably going to be the first and last class they would introduce. I still don't think they're going to bring a new class in.
I had a feeling that it was because it was completing out all the heavy, medium, light armor sets, right?
True. This is the thing. Yeah. I guess I was hopeful that they might bring in. They were just going to go, one more of each.
Wow, three classes in one expansion.
I mean, from an MMORPG, if you go and look at other MMOs that have been around for the amount of time, thinking about that's not kind of that ridiculous. Like, WoW and Elder Scrolls Online has got two now.
Maybe it's not a ridiculous want, but I think it's a mistake ultimately. I think Elite Specs, or something akin to Elite Specs, works much better for adding new flavor to a class than to overpopulate the MMO with multiple classes or more and more classes.
It's easier to produce as well, rather than having to make a whole new class. You just do this line, right? And that's good. Yeah, it's Guild Wars. It's the ArenaNet way. It's doing it differently. And I agree with you as well. Like, I would like a new class, and that would be cool. I don't think it's ever gonna happen, and I am a little bit disappointed. But it's just more of like, I liked the hype of Revenant, and I thought that was awesome. I'm
like
on it.
I was like we talked about previously when I was on, one of the last times. We don't really know. I mean, exactly. They could surprise with a new class.
Maybe.
But when it comes down to it, I mean, Elite Specs for all purposes to me function in many ways as just a new class, and I think. It's funny to hear, and a lot of people I think do feel those, delineations really strongly, because while it is nice to get like a whole new sort of theme and idea and package, I mean, if you look at how certain playstyles branch off with the specs, you are basically playing a new class anyway, or re-envisioning something in a totally different way. I mean, the fact that like when I'm dragon hunting, at least at its sort of base core, I could be swooping around the field with a bow, and then you go to something like Firebrand where you're holding a book and you're switching between different things. Like, it's very different.
Yes.
So for me, it's always been one of those things where I'm like, I don't really care if the new class is tied to other classes thematically, as long as I get a new play style, new weapons, new sort of feel, maybe, something new lore-wise. And a new class would be great just to, like, I don't know, add some fun stuff in. But I don't think there's anything wrong with building off of what you have, especially because you're not, like, not releasing something. It's just that it's an iteration off of a branch you've already been building on versus, like, releasing 3 new classes from scratch or something, which carries its own whole risk in any MMO,
Yeah. It's not as important as bringing dwarves into the game again. Yeah. True.
No, I agree with that.
Hey,
so
man.
You're gonna play as a thumb or as like a dwarf's head?
Thumb.
Dude, dwarf models are in the game. Okay? It's
Uh-huh.
possible. You don't know. Revenant is from the mists, all the things. Don't get me started. Otherwise, it's turning into a dwarf podcast. And don't say Tengu are better than dwarves. They're birds. And I'm sorry, BirdofChess. I know your name is BirdofChess. I have nothing against birds. Okay? But dwarfs. Everyone.
I must leave the podcast now.
I must leave the podcast. Rage quit. Sweet. No. Exit stage left or right. Can't remember which one I'm on. But yes.
Dwarves or Quaggins? Which one? Which one would you go for?
Wait, what?
As a playable
Is that even... That's not a question. That's not even a question.
Playable race?
As a playable race.
Quaggins or dwarves?
Quaggins.
Why are
for
you
sure.
here? Why are you
Quaggins
here?
are a food, not a
Who
race.
is a member of this person's community that would say anything over dwarves? Please.
Have you heard the way they sing? I'm sorry
I
if
like
I played
Tengus.
a Quaggin and I didn't have to listen to I can run faster than a centaur, and instead I got to just hear myself sing songs in an adorable fashion. Absolutely.
I like
Quaggin.
Quaggins. I like them.
Quaggin commander and you have to answer like the dialogue in Living Story, where you have to be like this boisterous commander who's like leading his troops into battle, and you're a Quaggan.
Oh, God.
How amazing would that be? That would be so
I
good.
mean, Quaggans are alright, but Jesus Christ, can you imagine that? I mean, dwarf or a Quaggan playable race. I mean, they're good. Okay, alright, shush. Chat's giving me crap.
We suffered massive casualties.
Oh my God, no. See?
It was a field of blood. Oh.
Give it a great axe and a beard, and I'll be there. It's fine.
It would be so good. I mean, also just because I love the idea of Quaggan raging. But no, I mean, dwarves.
It's true.
This is a whole conversation for later, Jeb. We've gone on a total tangent.
I know. Wait, hey, I didn't. I just said
very
said
excited.
dwarves, and then it opened the
job
conversation.
on
Just
all
took off.
podcasts
Is to go on tangents and force the show off.
I'm not
I mean, it's
normally
true.
quite good at this, but I'll suck today. Okay, we were talking about dwarves. This is now a dwarf podcast. So dwarves, why they should be in the next one, and why they weren't in Heart of Thorns, and why shouldn't
Why
they
were
have been?
Why were there no dwarves in Heart of Thorns? The discussion.
Exactly. Yeah.
They're all dead.
Shut up! Good lord! Please stop!
Petrified.
This is rude.
Not dead.
Talk about them being
Some
dead.
of them aren't. Some are less petrified than others.
Some of them are like literally only body parts now.
I'm gonna come away from this podcast like deeply wounded. Okay. I don't even remember what we're talking about. Heart of Thorns. There we go. Revenant, done. Let's put that over there. It was good. Awesome. Love it. Good stuff. It was a good class. New mechanics. It was like, I don't know. I enjoyed it. It was definitely a new spin on all the classes that have been coming out as well, which is what we're never very good at. And maps next. Let's talk about maps before we get to raids. Hot topic. I don't know. And BirdofChess going through like the original maps. So original base Guild Wars 2 endgame maps were like Ore. Ore was like no hearts, just events. And it was just all about, the fact that, you're in this place which you're technically invading. So you can just, well, no, you're evading, you're taking it back. But like, it's, yeah, hardly any hats? Any hearts? There's no hats. Oh god, I remember trying to get armor from there. Does anyone remember like Ore's the end zone, and you went to the temples to get armor? This is what you did. So, like you went to the temples to get armor, so that you could have different builds in like dungeons and World v World and stuff. It was so good. I missed that. Missed those days. But these maps are flat. There's just one level. You look at the map and that's it. You know what you get. And there might be some hills, there might be some cliffs, there might be the the dips and all the other stuff they've normally got in Guild Wars 2, which is awesome. And then Heart of Thorns, it was like, here's 3 levels. Is it 3 levels or 4? Can't remember.
3, I guess.
I think it's 3. Anyway,
It's like a deep dish pizza of death.
it is.
Yeah.
It is. Of death? Yes, if there's
Death.
mini raptors. Probably. But even the first map, when you get in there, it's just like, wow. And the map looked beautiful, but I just wonder, like, BirdofChess, when you're playing through and you suddenly get to this new first zone, what were your thoughts? Like, how did you feel when you first come across this? Did you think about that, or did it even come across your mind? Like, I don't know.
I think the Heart of Thorns maps have been a journey, like, that I'm still on. And I don't think it really culminated until I was doing full map completion.
Mhm.
And even after that, I still discover things in those maps. From just like a first impression walking into them, it is kind of a nightmare. And I say this in a way, keeping the journey in mind, right?
Nightmare
Because
cool.
I think I've grown to appreciate the Heart of Thorns maps, and we can talk about this more later too. But I've grown to appreciate them in a way that, like, I have never been so surprised by in an MMO, because the risk in those maps and in challenging players to engage with a map that is deadly and difficult and confusing and has all these tiny nooks and crannies. It's boggling. And so many times in other MMOs that I've played or that I know, the map is just like a vehicle that, you know, you just kind of have to tolerate until you get from point A to point B. And it can tell maybe a little bit of the atmospheric story or things like that. But Heart of Thorns, I mean, when you look at the balance between narrative and the map content, it's almost even. Like, it's crazy that not only is the story, I think, an integral part of that journey, but the map itself. But at first, coming into it, no mounts, no nothing, I died on stream. I mean, I spent most of stream just dead because we were playing through it the first time, and I'd be standing on a thing, and I was like, "Look at that front," and then I died, and then I'd be over climbing across a vine, and I'd be like, "Wow, can I go over?" And then I'd die, and then I'd see a whole bunch of cute raptors, and I was like, little tiny friends to put in my pocket, and then I'd die, and then I'd go. I mean,
you don't want to put them in your pocket.
It was mind-boggling to me. I mean, just mind-boggling to me, especially being a veteran MMO player, to encounter an environment that was overtly hostile to me. Not just in a way that's like, oh, you're not a high enough level, but once you're a high enough level, you'll be able to kill them all. But in a way that, like, every enemy we encountered, what's the little trick to this stupid mushroom? What's the trick to this guy? How do I deal with this one? Oh, there's more raptors. Oh, well, I fell off of that. Don't go over there. You will die. You will die in there. Don't go over. Like, and honestly, I think although there were some balancing to be done, I mean, I still look back on those maps and the designers that made them, holy cow. Like, it's incredible. They're really, really neat. They are, I think, something you should explore, even if they're difficult and they make you angry, because they're incredible. They're really amazing.
Yeah. I agree. I would say that it's incredible the leap in difficulty between core Guild Wars 2 and Heart of Thorns. I know, Inks, you said you might have to go. Is that?
Yeah, I apologize. I'm gonna have to bail out. I'm not feeling well.
Oh yeah, that's fine, dude. It's all good. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, feel
no
better.
worries. Feel better, dude. Feel better. Sorry, man.
Okay.
Thanks for coming now. Hope it's all right.
Okay, so yeah, it's the leap in difficulty is huge, and I think on release it was actually even harder than it is now. Like they toned down the difficulty a little bit on some of the skill point places, the hero points, and on top of that, I don't know if you remember this, Jebro. On release, they had you had to basically get through all 4 maps and kill all of the hero point areas in order to fully unlock your elite spec at release. Like you needed all of the points from all 4 new maps, almost all of them anyway, to unlock your elite spec. And so they definitely took suggestion from the community then too, saying it doesn't quite make sense to not be able to play the new class, the new elite spec, until you're done with the entire Heart of Thorns.
Yeah.
So they toned down that amount that you needed, and that was a good move, I think.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. That would have probably made the experience very different.
Yeah.
Having to battle your way through that map just to get the new specs.
Exactly. Yeah.
It was an interesting time. I was I'm trying to remember. I got them all pretty quick, as far as I remember. Ooh, I actually think I got Necro first. Did I get Necro? No, it must. No, it might have actually been Mesmer. Because I was a Mesmer main at launch.
Really?
Yeah, the launch of Guild Wars 2, I was. Yeah. It was, sorry, I wasn't ignoring you, Boots. I was trying to sort out the cameras. It's just
He's doing some shuffling.
It's just the Discord stuff.
Yeah, it definitely looks like that background's not big enough. I have a background that you should probably use instead.
It's working.
Yeah,
It's fine.
I sent it to you in chat, a background for you
I'll
that you
use it
can
next
use.
time. I promise. Inks is now a scrapper, so it's okay. I hope he's all right.
So Mesmer.
Yes, Mesmer. And I was like, okay, I'm going to unlock, Chrono. I actually switched to Engineer, I think, shortly before that. But then I was like, oh, I had this character and I had it from launch, so I'm going to make sure I do all the things on this. And I haven't played it for ages.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, when was it that you completed that? What map was it? It was before Dragon's Den, right? Like with skill points and everything else.
Skill points. Yeah, I think it was just before Dragon's Den.
Yeah, because there is no skill points there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it? No, because you have to do, because otherwise you'd have to do the event, and that would be insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you got to that point, and to be fair, I do remember like after the third ult, you're like, oh god, it is a little bit longer to do to complete that zone. To be fair, but those zones, but I don't know, maps for me. All right, let me think about the maps because there's Verdant Brink, Auric Basin. Now those two are very different from each other. To be fair, the general theme, the story, you're building up, and you've got this whole new city, and and to be fair, even to Tangled Depths, like all of those maps very different. To be fair,
yeah, which is strange because they're all basically just the same forest that they're in, but
yeah.
they're very, very different zones. Yeah.
But what was the verticality for you? And this is the main thing, right? This is what I'm kind of pointing towards. Like, how did you guys manage that? And like BirdofChess said, it is very much you're invading this forest. This is where you're going. You're going, Mordred, and like all this stuff. But at the same time, it's very much there's these different levels. And in Pathfire, we all know maps went back to a very flat, very open. It's a desert. It makes sense. What are you going to do there? And they still did add verticality on side of cliffs and adding like the houses and stuff like that they did in the first couple of maps and stuff as well. And even just in Joko's like base and whatnot, there's kind of a sense of verticality, but it's just platforms rather than anything else. But this was very different. This was more like a tree. This was like a tree. It was like going up and different levels of foliage, and they definitely had a plan for that.
Mm-hmm.
It was difficult to navigate at times, though. I felt. I'm not sure how you guys felt.
For sure, especially Tangled Depth. Tangled Depth is a tangled depth of a maze. There, it's so all of Guild Wars 2 maps before this in the core game, I feel that what they really excel at is giving you a feel of exploration as you go through them. And with the Heart of Thorns maps, it really took it to the next level because you got the verticality, right? And just gliding around mounts. Now you have mounts, and you're like, this is the way to travel. This is the way you're supposed to travel. This is amazing. You got your Griffin, you got your Raptor, but back then gliding felt really good. It felt really nice to be able to like glide down and explore all of the new zone and just kind of take the updrafts, and yeah, it was nice. It was really nice.
It sounded like you had a leisurely time later on holiday.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, as long as you avoid every monster, it's all great.
Yeah, suddenly you just brought down, and there's this big red circle around you, and you're like, oh, I just got completely wrecked by this gold mob, and I'm like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
But
the gliders really did change. I mean, like I am, like I said earlier, glad that I skipped. Well, I didn't skip to get mounts, right? Because it was like a revelation having a glider in the game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, knowing that just because I slipped off of something didn't mean that I was annihilated. And especially in those maps, it really did open it up in this way where, like you were saying, it felt like, oh, cool, I really achieved this thing. I really got this thing. Now I don't have to die all the time. And you'd, be diving down and then coming up. And I mean, the fact that they started adding that even into some of the fights and the story instances where, you're using those updrafts, or you're trying to figure out like how to get to exactly this platform or this thing. So you're looking around to sort of map a way to get there. And that's cool. Honestly, I really liked doing that, and it's rewarding now to come back with mounts and not have to worry as much. But I think that it was smart to pace it that way because it really does make you kind of get into those maps more. And you really do have to, you feel like you got something cool from it when you eventually get there and you unlock it and you start working on your masteries.
Yeah. It was,
yeah, that's true.
Heart of Thorns, the maps, all of them are interesting in that they are, we are an invading army into that forest trying to take out Mortarmoth, right?
Mhm.
And it definitely feels like that. It feels like hostile territory, even though in many ways is very beautiful and it was great to explore. It's very hostile territory, and it really started to feel that way, especially for me in Tangled Depths,
Mm.
because not only did they have hard monsters in there, they had the Czech Garant as well, but it was just so difficult to navigate. Like Tangled Depths especially more than Auric Basin and more than Verdant Brink. Tangled Depth was
the mother of
yeah. I definitely slowed down my progression in Heart of Thorns when I got to Tangled Depths, because just there's a lot of levels, a lot of underground levels, so you can't see where you're going as much.
Yeah.
And it's still a great map. It's just very difficult to navigate.
Trying to do map completion on that was the one that I saved for last. That was the last map, because I did full map completion, not just core map completion, because I wanted to. So I did all the zones, and going back to that one was so difficult. But we hear so much people say in like MMO communities, why would I play an MMO unless I wanted to play together? And then of course there's also this like flip side to it where people want to be able to have a single player experience if they are so inclined in an MMO space, which is, a constant battle. But Heart of Thorns leaned almost into that question of like, how do we encourage players to band together and do these things? And it's not always just a question of manpower. Sometimes being a veteran player is also a demonstration of the knowledge and understanding you have of things. And those maps are like a direct reflection of that. The moment somebody would come join and they were like, I used to run this meta 100 times a day, and they knew every nook and cranny. Like, you're following along behind them and you're like, you are an angel sent to this earth, sent to Tyria to guide me. And like, that's really fun, because we don't have to just look at like our gear and our levels and our rotations as being something that shows our, I think, veteran knowledge or in-depth knowledge of something. Learning and running these maps, I think, also demonstrates it. And it's fun when, you're bringing somebody new through them and that you are the one that's really helping them kind of achieve what they want. Because I'd try to find a point of interest for like 40 minutes and I could not. I'd be going down holes, dying, trying to get through this thing, going through the waterway. Where is it? What level? But when people could sort of pool their knowledge and help, it was an incredible, incredible gift.
Yeah. What do you guys think about Dragon Stand?
I love it.
I mean, it's good.
Yeah.
It's good. Like, I'm not really someone who. I mean, the first time I did it, it was really, really fun, the event and everything else. But I think, unless
like grinding it over and over again is not something you want to do.
It's not something I'm really that interested in. I did it for like legendaries and stuff, like when I needed to do it, and I think I've spaced it out that every single time I go back, it's kind of fun to go through it again because I don't do it every day. I liked it as an idea though, as like essentially it felt like almost, pardon me, this was like the end game for the player that isn't going to be raiding. Running a meta in the metas, that's what those big meta events were about, like farming that stuff. And the Czech, what was it? What was the one in Triple? That's another one. And the one in
Quaddle?
Yeah. Is that in game? I mean, yeah, I guess when they redid it, I suppose. But the one, what's the one in Tangled Depths? Is it Czech? Yeah, that was one of the main ones that was run, and it's still run. They're all run now. But that was kind of, I think, like the people who weren't raiding, and that's where you could get a lot of the items from. This is where you can get a lot of the stuff now as well. We have to rerun it. For different things, legendaries, for other weapons, for bloody nearly everything you can do, I guess, like towards end game. And I think that's very intentional. And that's kind of why I like it, but also at the same time, I don't repeat it that often. So it's a special thing when I go and do it. It's more of like, I need this thing, so I'm going to go do that. And that's why I'll do it.
Right.
It's still good.
For me, I'm probably about the same way as you. I don't do it often. I definitely thought it was the coolest thing in the world the first time I did it.
Oh yeah. It's
It
epic.
was, yeah. It was
Absolutely
like
epic.
Zaitan Hu, basically.
It was like a
was-
world boss. It was like an end boss in a single player game now.
Mhm.
But you've just other people walking around. Like with the epic intensity of just the size of this thing. And you've been going for so long through this journey and this story, and then you're at this place, and this feels like it's the thing. You know, it's the end boss. It's the end thing which I have to kill. It feels like that, you know, rather than just, you know, and something you can
Killing-
relive. Yeah, rather than just like, you know, it's a
Like
cutscene.
an alligator in
Yeah.
a small, in a
And it
small
is
zone.
forever in the game, gonna be there. That is something you can continually go back and destroy and get good stuff from.
A lot of times I say, we were literally saying this on stream today. A lot of times I'll say, I don't think you've actually finished the finale of Heart of Thorns if you haven't run Dragon Stand.
No.
Right.
Because
Maybe that's why, yeah, because you don't need to, do you? I don't think so.
no, you don't have to.
Ah.
And I mean, even people I was talking to today said that they'd never run it before.
Yeah.
And my heart stopped. I was like, you gotta just go
Wow.
do it. Just go do it.
Your heart stopped on that. I was like,
No, well, let me explain. I guess it
I know what you
stopped
mean. I
because-
know what you mean. I'm just taking the piss.
I
Sorry.
mean,
I'm English.
yeah, no, you're good. You're good.
It's a British
It's just like when you think of an MMO and what an MMO could be, the idea of like, what does it mean to all be in a game together? And especially in like a fantasy world, what could a battle be if we literally had an army? And, you know, you're not just playing from this like limited perspective of like a single person in like a thematic game where, you know, you've got NPCs maybe or whatever, but you might have this like one-on-one boss. But really this idea that like people all around the world can tackle something big. But because we've always struggled with these issues of, you know, limitations of server loads and all this stuff, and there's not often in an MMO where you really get to see that realized. And of course, that carries risk with it. Frame drops, I mean, like it happens, and it's a nightmare on Dragon Stand, but it's a nightmare that's so worth it because, like, for the first time in an MMO, and I think this is one of the moments where I can really remember falling in love, like definitively, with Guild Wars 2.
I think BirdofChess needs to be on the next promo for the expansion. I'm just like, whoa, keep going. Jesus Christ.
I mean, it's really amazing though, because like when you think back on it, think about world bosses you see elsewhere. I mean, Jeff, we were talking about this in ESO even. Like the world boss is like a little guy and he's in a cave and you're like, oh, well, that's cool. I like his mechanics. That's fine. But like for the first time, I went with everybody. It hadn't been spoiled for me. I had no idea what was going to happen. And a literal dragon from like a book burst up. And like, it was unbelievable seeing everybody jumping between the platforms. I had no idea what was going on. I was like trying not to die while I was gliding. And there it is, like this moment where you go, I'm so glad they tried to do this and did it. Even if it, you know, notoriously carries some lag or frame drops or things. So for me, when I run it, I don't even run it to farm stuff. I just run it because I love seeing that. And I love the dragon and I love all of it. And knowing that at the same time, that moment that you lived at the end of Heart of Thorns is happening right alongside this struggle you're fighting. And it's really neat.
So actually, I have a question for you. Did you do you've done probably the world bosses before you did Dragon Stand, right? Like the world bosses in Courtier, yeah?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Probably
We
those
did.
come
Pretty
across
epic too. But
Some of them
they,
are super cool.
yeah, but they do have that problem of like, as long as you have enough people, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And
They will
but al- and
always
al-
have enough people now.
yeah, and
Yeah.
also the
Normally.
fact that
Evidence as
unless
well.
you know the timing, they just kind of randomly appear. So yeah, I see how Dragon Stand, where the entire map is focused on one goal, and you're going in it to do this one thing. It's pretty epic, that's for sure.
It's neat. It's cool.
Was it Nolan
got a-
North?
Oh, was he? But did Nolan North seriously voice him?
I don't actually know. Was
Cool.
it?
Oh, neat. That's
Really?
cool. I didn't know that.
I didn't
Thanks,
know
chat.
that. Very nice.
Yeah, it's cool. We got a little
Just more
taste of that again.
It's Nolan North. It's him. It's just everything. Same. Looks
Yeah.
the same. You know.
We got a little taste of that again with the New World boss. It was fun on release day, at least, to go in, and I felt like they really nailed the difficulty on it this time around because, like you were saying, like so many of the other ones, they don't fail. It's, as long as you have enough people, you feel like, oh yeah, this is definitely going to be fine. But like when we did the new one, just like literally as it released, I mean, we were down to like 1% and we were about to like it was almost over. The timer was almost up and everybody's just like yelling. And I'm glad that they continued that tradition with world bosses, because Dragon Stand definitely, I think, hit home for me how incredible they could be and how metas and those world bosses could come together to tell a really incredible story.
Well, that's kind of funny as well, because you got everyone shouting and screaming in the last minute when you're like, dudes, if you like actually didn't type, you'd be doing more DPS right now. Please stop typing. Shut up. We all feel the same. You just missed like 10 abilities by typing that massive sentence. Probably more.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. Yeah, good question as well, Beats. It was awesome. And I think, all the maps aside, I think the funny thing is I think a lot of people didn't like Heart of Thorns maps until Path of Fire came out. That's how I felt about it, all the way I saw it anyway, because I did see a lot of newer players and people who weren't maybe as invested in the game. Heart of Thorns was a difficult beast to maneuver around for a lot of people, and it was very off-putting. Because
definitely
I don't know.
Open things up for people in Heart of Thorns maps. Like it, I know that even though I was able to get through Heart of Thorns easily, I got through Heart of Thorns fine, and I enjoyed the maps, but they did in certain cases, especially Tangled Depths, feel very claustrophobic. But yeah, with mounts, it just opens everything up for sure.
Yeah,
like you can
go back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely don't regret that. Like Path of Fire went. It's like it's tough because
it went back to what it was. I mean, it had to with the theme.
Well,
there's not much it can do.
I mean,
yeah.
They do still, like you said, Jeb, they do still try to keep some of that sense in there, right? With some of the verticality and the fact that they really do try to keep masteries that even, mushrooms and stuff, there's still places where you can use those things. And it's kind of opening up what they can do with it. I'm really hoping that we maybe see like just a little step closer to Heart of Thorns again with the next XP. Just like a little. It doesn't have to be too much, because there were times where it was daunting. But yeah, like a little bit of a push back towards some of that. Of course, now we have a lot of fun other content on maps though, with the light puzzles and even mount puzzles and races and all sorts of stuff. Like there's ways to keep it interesting, but I don't regret that like I didn't have to die constantly and pay in my blood just to explore a zone. But I mean, I do think there's something to be said about the creativity in it and the experience of it, because it is very visceral and people really remember it still to this day,
Well, I mean, I think a part of that is because Heart of Thorns was designed for the masteries the maps were designed for the masteries they put it in, right? It was you were limited to these areas until you got your glider. You were limited to these areas until you were able to master the jumping mushrooms. And it was very vertical because those things are very vertical.
You could
and then
still
when you
access maps. You just couldn't do much in them, right? Like you couldn't reach a certain place. Or could you?
And you still could. It's just difficult.
Very difficult.
But Path of Fire is the same thing. They're different maps because they were built to cut you off from certain things with the different mounts you have, right? Yeah. So Desert Highlands starts to get more vertical because you're getting the Springer at that point. And yeah.
And you
so
can
you're right,
hire them. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
It's a progression in a different way, because they also didn't have level progression. So they wanted to do it in a completely different way. That was their way of you leveling up, essentially, right? Like, and this is where we can talk about like horizontal progression and not mounts, gliders, and all of that kind of stuff. Because obviously you had to learn a language to talk to different people, so you could get access to different NPCs. You had to get the mushrooms, like BirdofChess said. What else was there? The mushrooms, obviously the
toxin mastery, so you could go in the toxic zones.
Yeah, that's right.
That's just literally blocking you off from stuff. That's not like a movement thing. That's
Yeah.
So there's quite a lot of that kind of horizontal, and that was a big choice, wasn't it, as well? Like thinking about the fact that you're not going to be hitting above level 80, but you're going to be hitting a mastery level, which is essentially, and I compare this a little bit to it, yeah. So I guess champion points, but also not, because that's just continuing levels on a different place where you add different points to your power. But this wasn't increasing your power. This was essentially increasing your access. I think this was like access is the key word difference, because it's your access to different features and different parts of the game, rather than decreasing your power. Because, you know, other than not having a legendary or an ascended weapon, you know, you're still gonna be pretty powerful even with an exotic weapon. In all honesty, it's not a massive boost, but it is.
That's a good point. Because mounts felt, when in Path of Fire came out, mounts felt like just a new thing that's improves the game tremendously because they're awesome fun. But Masteries and Heart of Thorns were basically, in a lot of ways to limit your character and progress through Heart of Thorns specifically.
And raids,
because
you couldn't get to raids if you didn't have that. Like, it was all about access. Yeah.
Because not only that, but back then when it first came out, for quite a while actually, gliding, and obviously there were no jumping mushrooms in the rest of Tyria, gliding wasn't available in core Tyria yet. So they added that afterwards. Your gliding only worked in the Heart of Thorns map. So yeah, it was a design choice just to limit your progression as you go in Heart of Thorns.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that was your incentive for doing it. Like, it was like you it's like, okay, well, I don't have this specific gliding mastery that might make my life easier. I can use the what are they called, the rainbow pathways, the ley lines. Ley lines, that's right.
I think there was one or two places that you couldn't get to if you didn't have that.
Yep,
in the map.
Couldn't. And also, but there were places where it would help you get to places quicker. Like, you would have to traverse areas and go up and down and stuff like that. So you were like, I could make my life like a lot easier for my ults if I do this thing, and also it will make my life easier anyway. And then it was so it was about like that kind of access, and it could kind of make things a little bit more easy for yourself. But then there is, of course, that thing is, when it's done, it's done. But then it's the same with leveling. Like, if you hit like the next 10 levels, you know, you've done that content and it's over, and that's so in a way it's kind of similar but not the same. And I don't know, I'm still not sure. I don't think I would have wanted to go above 80, to be fair, because there's still quite a lot of levels in Guild Wars 2 in terms of base core levels. The mastery obviously is fine, and now we're at like crazy numbers in terms of mastery points and different things you can do. I'm not sure about how I feel about them now, but, you know, talking about Heart of Thorns, I think it was a good way to go, I think. And then having the core mastery stuff as well, looking back to Tyria and the base game, and I think it was all kind of like mastery points. I don't know how you guys feel. Do you like mastery points generally? You all right?
Yeah. They're a fine way to progress in the game. I mean,
not massively hyped about them, but they're a thing.
I feel like definitely the mount masteries are the best type of masteries.
Absolutely, yeah.
They're like, you can use them everywhere. The core masteries are fine too, because they brought stuff like AoE loot and stuff like that. Auto AoE loot.
That was super handy. Yeah. Those were really good. I remember when everyone wanted to farm the core Tyria masteries, and you went to Citadel Flame, and you went and do you remember that? I think I remember a podcast on my Teapots channel when you guys were talking about that. But then you just went to Citadel Flame Path 1, and you farmed the char that were running in, right, where you were in the 4 bubbles, and you need to open the door. And then you didn't open the door, and you just came in and you just farmed them. I think you can still do that. Right? I can't remember.
So there's also another farm. I don't remember what it was for. I forget. It was around the Heart of Thorns time. It was at Halloween. There's like a lot of bugs on the ground in one of the zones in like the Prince.
I think so. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
In the maze?
Trying to remember what that was for. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Completely off topic.
Yeah, there's loads of those things though, wasn't there? There always is. Like, there's a specific place.
They corrected that. I forget why. But what was I saying before
It's
that?
the same thing as the massive farm that was in
Right.
Divinity's Reach, I think, as well. I can't remember. Something like INKS 6 Hills, that map on the east side. Do you remember that, when people would just get engineers with turrets and
Yeah, and then
Oh, boy.
and then they had the engineer farm also at. Okay, we should not just talk
Sorry,
about
yeah,
random
it just brought up memories of these just different events where tons of people would just gather. Well, the thing is, funnily enough, it ended up being quite a fun community event, to be fair. Because everyone just be there, like, just talking about the game, and it'd actually be kind of funny because there were new players or old players, and the map was getting, infested with people, and you're like, you end up chatting because you're just farming.
Yeah, what are they doing there?
It's kind of funny. Anyway.
Yeah. But back to Masteries, yeah, I'd say that the best Masteries for sure are mounts, because it seems like most other Masteries are there for a specific map to limit your progression in that map so that you stay there longer, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a very good observation about it. I mean, Masteries I love because they have a lot of possibilities. I mean, like you were saying, the idea of like, how do we provide some kind of incentive that's more horizontal progression versus just this like vertical ascension that's so common. And like by building up different tools that you have in maps, it means that we can do fun things with the maps that maybe other MMOs can't, to make it sneakier or have these different elevations or these special puzzles or all these different things, because they're just sort of building up their toolkit of stuff that we can navigate with as a player. But it does feel like, other than mounts, which is super fun, and I like you were saying, I think they are so great, and a lot of times the little story that goes with some of the like harder to acquire ones can be fun, and the steps really feel like you're getting something really great as you like level them up. And then those core ones where it affects a lot of other things for you, they are really map specific.
Yeah.
And I would love to see those masteries play like a bigger role, because like chat was kind of saying, it's fun that some of the Heart of Thorns ones almost kind of operate as like rep systems in a sense, where like, sure, if you level this up, then they will help you, or you'll have this thing, or you'll see them with you on the map. I think they could do some really neat things with expanding like their view of masteries to even encompass additional stories or like relationships and themes, as opposed to just like how to navigate a map or be able to go to places that you can't. That would be something that would be a lot of fun, and would maybe have a little bit more of like a far-reaching thing if we could have it affect a lot of stuff, kind of like being able to AoE loot, or something that would give you a bigger picture to work towards besides just a map uncovering.
Yeah, and it's funny because Heart of Thorns masteries were the first masteries, and they were essentially map-specific masteries at the time, even though it was so novel because it was the first time you could glide, and it was exciting in its own way then. But looking back at it, if they didn't expand it to the rest of Tyria, it would have been very much like the masteries you get today in Living World. But they did expand to the rest of Tyria, and they made the mounts. And so masteries overall, I'd say, are a great addition to the game. But I would really enjoy it, like you said, BirdofChess, if they made more universal masteries rather than map-specific masteries.
And that's probably a conversation for the expansion.
Maybe.
Yep.
Maybe, indeed. I'm going to have to remember that. Okay, raids. I don't know how much you guys have raided. Have you raided?
I'd raid. Oh, yeah.
There you go. BirdofChess is a pro raider in the Final Fantasy.
Okay.
Were those words that came out of your mouth? You're like, no. Mate, yeah.
In Final Fantasy, yes, I would say I'm
adequate.
Maybe I'm more technically proficient. Guild Wars 2 raids, there's still a lot that I have ahead to learn, but I've cleared about half of all of the wings at this point, through to the end, and it's been really fun. Like, I'm not gonna lie, the raids in Guild Wars 2 are very different in a lot of ways, but I am glad that they eventually decided to put them in, because when you were asking earlier, like, did you think why would they bring these? Do you think it was a good idea that they brought raids to Guild Wars 2? I do think it was good, because MMOs, just as part of their nature, what people are usually looking for in them, right? The first questions you hear out of people, What are the classes I can play? What is the endgame content like? What is the PvP mode? Is there competitive PvP mode? Like, there is sort of a list of things that people want from an MMO. So putting in something that is an endgame content that allows you to have this epic fantasy feel and allows you to work towards some endgame gear and special rewards and things like that, while also expanding on some of the stories in the world, is great. Are they what you can expect from a lot of other raids? Yes and no, but I kind of love that, because when you look at the fact that there's not like a traditional trinity in Guild Wars 2, and even though raiding probably takes you the closest to it, it's really fun looking at what do we have in this game that we can use, and then seeing the creative ways that they sort of challenge players to come up with solutions in raiding. So for me, while all the fights may not always be the most technically insane, and some of them are pretty difficult, but there's a pretty wide gap of difficulty in the raids, it is still really fun to go in the first time. And especially, people know all the metas, they know all the builds, they know all the things now, but it's fun to go in and be like, wait, hold up, what does this boss do? It's a big sloth and it sets me on fire? Okay, hold on. How do we stop the fire? Does anybody have a way to stop it? I died again. Can we cleanse it? Can we, and
you're looking over there. You're not looking to where the Revenant was earlier. You're just looking over there. Are you back there? Can someone get rid of this thing?
It's fun that between bosses you might change a build. Between bosses you might even swap out comps. You might go into something and it's completely non-traditional as a boss, but there's a way to solve it. And I think it made me open up my mind to the fun of raiding and how much fun it can be. And people forget that because it's about the rewards, it's about the clears. But I think that in Guild Wars 2, they've done something really fun, and Heart of Thorns, released that and set that precedent. And I can't imagine what a challenge that was to try and balance and figure out how we implement this in a game where we don't have these traditional roles. I don't. Man,
it's genius. It's also very unique, right? Because I don't know Final Fantasy or ESO rating in those games. Do you just like WoW have a gear progression?
Yes. Yeah.
So that's the progression.
There's a strict gear progression in 14. ESO is a little more similar to Guild Wars 2 in sort of style.
It's more set pieces. So you get new armor sets. The power isn't different other than the bonus that you get towards the end of having those sets. So ESO is very different in terms of you can have a couple of different sets on you at the same one time, which is the rune basically in Guild Wars 2. And then you can get it's mainly cosmetic as well at the end, completing and getting a new skin and stuff like that. It is like BirdofChess says, it's not really, you could say it's power because of the power of the set bonuses that you get, which is where ESO's power kind of is, to be fair. But the ESO rating is very stereotypical, really, to be fair, of what a raid is. You've still got your Trinity and Guild Wars 2. Like BirdofChess said,
it's the difference between Guild Wars 2 and, let's say, WoW, the one I'm more familiar with. It doesn't get easier the more gear you get. It gets easier the better you get. And WoW, basically, back in the day, was very much about being able to do enough DPS because your gear is good enough, because you've grinded this enough. And you can't do that in this game because there is a maximum gear, there is a maximum level, and
there's less people, there's movement, and there's dodging, and there's mobility is important, and there are and you need that. You can't with a tab targeting game it's where it's just obviously you can tab target Guild Wars 2, but like I say with WoW, when it was made, and the old school raiding games, it is very much about that rotation of abilities. And it's the same in Guild Wars 2. You obviously have to do your rotation right to get the maximum DPS, but you also, it is still very reliant on individuals to perform specific roles on a lot of bosses. There are obviously face roll bosses that and this is going to be the top end who will give me shit about this probably. But we're not talking about them. where you'll be able to trounce a boss by just DPSing. But there's not many bosses I can think you can do that. There's a lot of intricate, detailed bosses where you have to do so many specific things, and you have to assign a lot of people to do these things. There's a tank doing this. There's 2 teams on different platforms. I'm thinking of the latest raid wing. I can't remember his name. Where you have to be on different platforms, DPSing different bosses, and you have to take them down at the same time. There's even from the very beginning, the first boss you take down, you need to make sure that you have everyone sectioned out into different areas to make sure that this boss dies. The
Right.
red and the blue boss. What's the first boss in the raid called? Jesus.
VG?
Yeah, that's
talking
it.
about
Veil
VG?
Guardian.
Yeah.
And you have to make sure you've got condition damage, power damage, blah blah blah. And it's like, okay, from the very first boss, they've already said this is something we're going to be doing. And this is going to
They have
continue
to.
through raids.
Because they
there's
had to make it difficult, even if you have the best gear in the game.
Yeah, and there's so many different ways to answer the questions of the raids in Guild Wars 2, which I find to be
What
fun.
are the questions of the raids? BirdofChess?
The questions of the raids, I mean, like you were saying, like how much DPS do we need to take it down? But then in Guild Wars 2, we can break that even further. What kind of DPS do we need?
Yes.
Because it's rare in a lot of MMOs where that like delineation between condi damage or damage over time, for anybody who might not know, condi damage versus power damage is a distinct thing that can actually matter. Like with VG, like you were saying, there is one particular thing, one particular sort of split ad that can only take condi damage. So
And then there's breakbar damage.
yeah, so like there's all of this, and breakbar damage is a whole other thing. Like there's all these different types of damage that you need to understand. So it's like, how much damage do we need? All right. How can we stay alive through incoming damage? How can we heal, recoup, or mitigate the damage? What kind of damage is incoming to us? How is aggro wrangled? That's another big question. Is there aggro? Which is a question that Guild Wars 2 has that most other Trinity games don't. Do we have Chronomancer as a tank? Yeah, but in this fight, the boss gonna get mad at you if you look at him funny. Or like in this fight, the boss might just get mad at you because he feels like it. Or in this one, because you have this many stacks. Or in the, like whatever it is, there's all these different like questions to it that they have as possibilities. And there are things about Guild Wars 2 raids that like I'm not super keen on. I think sometimes they are not always the most consistent about illustrating AoEs, for example, or like what is a beneficial effect versus what is a detrimental effect. Sometimes there are lag issues or weird RNG things. Like, again, we can go back to VG because it's the most basic. A green spawns somewhere so far away, you're just like, well, okay, bye-bye. Like, or weird
or
stuff
you
like
use
that.
distortions
Yeah,
like we did like back in the day.
Speaking of back in the day, though, this is interesting. I like this conversation because we have someone who started playing 2 years ago, back when raids were kind of already figured out.
That's thinking,
obviously not the
That's thinking.
not the new ones that were coming out after you joined the game, but raids in general were figured out as a group composition, as your general rotations, etc. But when raids first came out, it was a lot harder because nobody really knew how to properly DPS. Nobody really knew that you needed to have quickness.
For
your party.
It's different.
So,
it's different than kettle of fish. I remember in World v World, I used to be a big World v World player, and when we started to actually understand that boons were so important, we used to have nights of World v World practice where we would literally go from one spot to the other and practice gathering as a group, getting our boons sorted, and having like stacking might, stacking swiftness. Like that would be 30-40 minutes before we even went into a raid. Like and went like traveling around World v World like that. We did that for months, and it was until we had it down.
So then, before you started your raid, you'd start stacking all your stuff, walk into VG for the first time, and all your boons are gone, and you're like, wait, damn it, I learned how to stack before.
Yes, and then you'd have to do it while you're on the run, while you're doing the thing, and it's like another extra thing you have to learn. And then it's like there's no taunt. I actually thought, because Revenant brought in taunt, right? That's when they started to bring in the taunt effect, and I was
You
thinking,
thought that was.
I thought it was going to be a thing for raids. So I was like, at the beginning, I was like, oh, right. That's, I think before they actually, did they announce Revenant before raids? I can't remember. It might have been something. And I was like, oh, they're bringing in a taunt. So they're actually going to have this as a thing. Where it's just, we know what it is, toughness. But, which is interesting. Because
But it doesn't do anything.
it's just like, it's just like, it's not an ability. You just like, you have the toughness and that's the tank.
That's it.
And that's like, okay, cool. We don't need that ability. Why? Why should I have to press an ability just to get a mob to attack me? It seems ridiculous. Get rid of that. And I like that. I really do. But it wasn't their intention. Dungeons. No one knew. Did anyone know that the highest toughness? I think it was always talked about, and then people knew, but not everyone knew.
Really? Was it still doing that in dungeons? I thought it got introduced in raids. Just the toughness
I don't
tank.
think it did. No, I think it was talked about way before. And I think they worked out that the person who had the highest toughness was the person getting. I just remember reading about it before.
Is that true? Because that is
I think-
revelatory to me. That's.
I think that's what
I've
it
been
was.
playing this game for 8 years, and I do not know that in dungeons. the
Yeah, I
toughness
think so.
tank-
I mean, you can go check it. Like maybe that's the way it works now. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that's how it works in dungeons as well.
Huh.
Or has it always been? Are you sure? I thought it was something to do with toughness.
Always toughness.
It's not? Okay,
It
fair enough.
says how it works as far as I know. Dungeon aggro, who knows? There's a lot
Anyway,
it
but
to
like,
say.
I mean, that's where you don't need to necessarily have. Again, dungeons were different, and it's in their inception. I'm still really sad that they never really did anything like that. I mean, you've got fractals and everything else, and that's cool. But I just want a good old fashioned. I love those dungeons in Guild Wars too. They were very unique. But yeah, I kind of wish that was thing. Anyway, that's something else.
Yeah.
But yeah, raids. And also bringing in the legendary armor, and because even though that wasn't like Heart of Thorns. I mean, it technically is half of Heart of Thorns because it's raids, because you can't raid without Heart of Thorns. I think that was they brought in the legendary armor. I would still remember what's his name? Oh God. Flipping out. He used to create content with wooden potatoes.
With wooden potatoes? No, not Brazil.
No. It was and they did
Mike.
Visual. Matt Visual.
Matt Visual.
Yeah. And he was talking about legendary armor years ago. And when it came out, I still remember the day that they announced that, and he was just like, yeah, because I remember talking about actual legendary armor, and then going for that, and then that's when I got into raids. And I actually raided with Aurora Peachy. It was like every week on a Wednesday. Yeah, and it was and Bogota was in that raid before I joined. But then he left, so I think don't think I took his spot, but I was in there with Aurora Peachy and some other people, and we did that. I was doing that for a year or so. And there was another group before that, and it got tiresome. I think it's just it got tiresome just because the amount of actual raid content that came out wasn't enough to sustain my interest, and is a streamer as well, playing all these games. Which is different experience, but there's so much there, and if you haven't played the raids and you want to try and get into a group, I would suggest kind of try to, if you can. That's another conversation about how to get into raids, but there is
It's a long conversation.
yeah, it's a very long conversation. But it's a very unique experience, and something that I agree with them bringing in. And I think it was good that they kind of went back on their stance, because they did say that they didn't really want to bring in raids. This is actually something they kind of insinuated, said, but never said no, we're not going to do it, because I think that would be dangerous. Like, no, we're never going to do this, but 3 years later. So yeah, I think that was good that they can. I think that's good that they can do that, and they can go back and I don't think they ever thought they would even bring mounts in, to be fair.
So there is something to say, though. I mean, Heart of Thorns, for all the amazing things about it, did have its downsides, didn't it?
What was one of its downsides?
Well, I would say one of its downsides is they did spend a decent amount of time after it first came out fixing a lot of things that had to do with it, like rebalancing the rewards, rebalancing the grind.
I think this is where
and-
not having a PTS hurts
Yeah,
ArenaNet. I
for
think this
sure,
is
for
where
sure.
it hurts them.
And because of the fact that they spent so much time developing only Heart of Thorns up until the time it launched, and then working on fixing things from Heart of Thorns after it launched, they had that first period of time where I think it was like 6 months or something of no content.
Yeah, that was a big drought. I think there was some I feel like there was uncertainty around that time. Was that was when the big story drought was it 6 months until they had story?
I forget how long it was, but it felt like a million months.
Yeah, we haven't talked about guild halls. That's actually true. We should probably talk about that. We can kind of bring in what you're saying as well, Boots, to be fair, because I think that's quite a good place to talk about guild halls actually, and expectations and their usage now maybe, and maybe, you know, how and also the new Borderland for World v World, that's another thing, and Stronghold. I think you've actually made it. That's a good transition, to be fair, actually, because all these things that are coming up are probably the things that didn't work as well as maybe they had hoped and expected, and maybe
probably also including legendaries
at that time. What, the new ones?
Well, the fact that
a lot of people like
everybody loves legendaries, but the fact that Heart of Thorns was marketed as having a whole new set of legendary weapons,
and not completing them,
and then only completing them after even Path of Fire came out.
Right. Have they even completed them though? Have they even?
They have completed them. They are now finished the second set of all the legendary weapons.
But not this. They didn't do it in the same manner.
No. They did.
So
they started
the
the first legendary weapons that came out after Heart of Thorns, tied to the release of Heart of Thorns, all had interesting masteries to complete with them, story with them as well. I think that was very difficult to produce, unfortunately. So
very long process.
So it took a long time to do, and then they said, okay, you know what, we're still going to give you all of these legendaries that we promised, just they're not going to be quite as fleshed out as they were to begin with.
So if you don't know and you're listening or you're watching, it basically the Heart of Thorns brought in a new legendary weapon way to get them. So you would still have to get all these items put together to get the legendary, but you would do different things. Like the idea was to build this weapon from the base up, and then you would go through this story, like Bruce was saying, different achievements which unlocked where you had to go through this pathway. And how many did they launch with? 3? Was it 2 or 3?
4 or something?
Was it 4 maybe? Yeah. And yeah, they didn't do any others. Did they do one more?
Which ones have stories? We've got.
Did they do the short bow? No.
Astrolaria has a story. Does
Champawat does. Chupa Champawat, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Kutsu, does it have a story?
I don't think so.
I can't remember. Does it have a pistol?
Nevermore
does. Yeah. That's 3.
Kudzu, I think, was no, that wasn't an original. It wasn't original.
I think there's one more. We said Astrolaria.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we at least have 3. Astrolaria, Champawat.
Yeah, Hope.
And
it was the pistol. I think.
Hope. Nevermore. Chuka, Nevermore, Astral Hope.
Nevermore definitely did. Yeah, that's true. I think.
Yeah. Hope.
But that's a lot. That was a lot of work, and that's fair enough. And I think, you know, a lot of people were let down by that. But I think in the end they just kind of admitted that it was going to take for the amount of effort and work that went into that, for the amount of people that were going to be able to get through it and do it. It's just not worth it. It's you know, putting resources into places which it's just not good business, is it? You know, you don't put, you know, a ton of people into this one thing, pay them a wage, and then, you know, not many people are playing it essentially. And okay, yeah, there's loads of people shouting about the fact that they want to do it, but it's not enough.
So at PAX East,
okay,
I met at that party that you were at too, Jebro.
Yep.
We got to meet some of the devs, and I got to talk to Colin Johansson for a little bit.
Ooh.
And at that time,
it was
smile. He's a nice guy.
The sword-wielding legend.
And at that time, I think it was before Heart of Thorns came out, and he was talking about how the legendary weapons is going to ship with a few of them, but not all of them. And I think I remember telling him, I'm sure that's fine as long as they're the ones that replace the silly joke ones, right? Because in the original set of legendary weapons, you got stuff like Quip, which is kind of a joke weapon. You got stuff like the bow, which shoots unicorns, which is a joke weapon. And I said, I'm sure
that's not a joke to a lot of people, Boots. I think that's a very daring comment to make. I mean, there are a lot of people in this chat I know that have that bow and take it very seriously. Unicorns are. I knew she'd say something. Renegade's just like, yeah. What are you talking about?
The mace is a bit of a joke weapon.
Unicorn bow makers coming out of the chat now. Like...
Yeah, so I feel bad. I feel bad that maybe my words.
It was all you.
Made it okay for ArenaNet not to release all of the things at once, or try harder to make them come out quickly.
Take it to Reddit. That will get many views and so much rage.
Yeah, it is hard because they have so many weapons in the game, and of course, you want everybody to have at least something cool that they can work towards, no matter what they're doing or running.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of a weapon having a story, and like if you're gonna put that time into it, for me personally, the last thing that I want is just like collect 10,000 of this one thing and you will not do anything else until you have 10,000 of it, and it will take you 3 years. Like that drives me crazy in games. Whereas if they say to me like, here's this really cool story, it's going to be a really long haul, but it's really worth it, and at the end you're going to have this thing and you're going to feel this connection to it and you're going to really feel like you earned it. I love that. But I mean, you both bring up a really good point of no matter what people say, how many people are actually going to complete that content? And if it's a matter of like, do we just release the skins because at the end of the day they want this legendary thing, or they want this shiny look, or they want this whatever, and we devote those story resources elsewhere, then like, yes, I understand, like allocate it elsewhere. I didn't realize that they had said that, and like then the release didn't quite pan out, but I'm glad they at least got through all the Gen 2 stuff and we're seeing some new ones again, because they are cool for people who really want to work towards them or want that grinding content.
Yeah. They're still there. They're not removed yet, so that is something you can do. At least it's still there. Right, let's move on. We're gonna go to. Let's talk about guild halls very briefly. I've probably got like 20 minutes or so, and I don't want to go on too much longer in case people do have to go. I don't know how you guys are sorted. Are you okay for a bit?
I'll have to cook dinner at some point.
Eat dinner at some point.
When would that be?
I could go for maybe another. I definitely have to be not here anymore in half an hour.
Okay, well there you go then. Boom. Is that okay?
Okay.
Yeah, that works for me.
Okay, half an hour. Guild halls started. I think the guild halls were awesome to start with. Definitely like, whoa, there's 2 guild halls, we can claim them back. Initial thing, boom. But how did you get to experience that, BirdofChess?
Yeah, we went. So I didn't experience it at release, but when we after we had formed our guild and we were at the point where we put together a big group and we captured the hall on stream together, which was so fun. I loved being able to do that, and I loved that having a place for your guild in Guild Wars 2 wasn't just like, well, here you go, now you can put some crafting stations. It was like, you have to go together and you must earn it. And that was a really unique experience. And I feel like it definitely made me, feel like when we go into the hall now, I'm like, we did this, we got this, we built it. And that's a neat feeling.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Look, right? I love the concept of guild halls. I love the way you get them. I love the fact that they exist, but they definitely kind of stopped.
It's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, that's fine.
I got distracted. Geek gifted me a sub and I had to respond to it.
All right, okay. All right. I know what you mean, yeah. And he's like, what were you talking about? Yeah, that's pretty cool. That normally covers it, unless it's like talking about something.
75% of the words that you said. I'm sorry.
She enjoyed
forgiven.
them basically and had the opportunity to get them unlocked recently. With
That's it. I
with
just liked
stream.
capturing it. I thought that was
Yeah.
fun.
She
Yeah.
thought they were pretty cool as well.
I thought they were pretty. They were all right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
It was cool. I do agree that it feels like that we had much to build on that.
Yeah.
Like beyond that, you know? I mean, once we upgraded everything, which did take a long time, and there's a lot of neat possibilities in it, and guild missions are a lot of fun. But I would love to see, like, it's just tough because it feels like a half measure. You know what I mean? It's like, here's this thing where core of a lot of your gameplay about your guilds and your cooperation, and we're going to give you all sorts of stuff if you work at it.
Yeah.
But then on the other side, it was almost like they went, oh, I don't know though, because what if people don't have guilds? And
Yeah.
a lot of effort. And yeah.
It's a little strange because you can still do so many cool things with it. Like you could, I see tons of people making like roller beetle racetracks in there, which is awesome. I love that. I used to do videos with WP where his guild hall would make gigantic jumping puzzles, which was amazing. But
It's very
so
niche. Very niche.
there's a lot of things you can do with it, and I feel like there's so much more that could be added to it.
Mhm.
But I just can't. I don't know what would that be. It's weird. I feel like there should be more added to guild halls, but I can't off the top of my head tell you what those things are.
That's actually going to be the next podcast. I just decided guilds is going to be the next podcast. Let's do a podcast about guilds and their stuff and what they're going to be doing, because that is a place is like,
Yeah.
and if anyone in chat has an idea that they want to see for a podcast about Guild Wars 2 wise, like I'm always thinking about podcasts and what to do. So if you have something that you think, oh, not many people cover that, then like, subjects and stuff would be useful. Actually, World v World might be a good one. I need to get some knowledgeable peoples about that, because I don't know about it anymore. But yes, and that's the thing about guild halls is where does it go from now on? Like, where does it go? Like the arenas, that they weren't really that used very much, and still not really, other than by, I don't know, actually I don't even think World v World peeps use those anymore. Yeah, that's gonna be another conversation. Otherwise, we could go on for a while. But that was one of the things which was, initially the inception was like, this is gonna be awesome, and it was very cool. I remember streaming it myself. I remember getting the new one in Path of Fire and being like, oh, this is cool. But then once you've got the vendor, and I go in there to grab the reward, the extra XP or the extra PvP reward potion, and then that's really it. And look at the statues maybe every so often, and like
Yeah, the
raid
statues are fun.
Look at your statues.
Sorry,
Yeah.
not of me.
The monument built to Jebro, he
Yeah.
just goes and admires them.
This big egg.
I love that there are, okay, so guild halls obviously have things, you're obviously going to talk about them more in detail, but to be fair, I think this is a problem that a lot of MMOs have, because there's always this idea of like, let's make your company or your guild or your whatever sort of this hub of social experience. But then how that's actually like realized in the game can be kind of hit or miss, as far as like what the guild hall does provide. I do think that it provides you some pretty nice stuff. And it gives people an alternative way to even get some, extended items or things like that. If you're doing guild missions, there's some fun little bonus, items and minions or miniatures that you can pick up. There are ways that you can see like, hey, we killed this thing this many times and here's a cool statue. And like, that's pretty fun because it really does scale with all the different bosses you've done. And especially like with our group, when we do learning progression rating, it's really fun to see how we've come and like put all those statues out and be like, hey, look at what we've all accomplished and the different tiers of that. But when it comes to like what incentivizes people to continue to go back and what makes this something that like becomes something for everybody in future expansions or continues to develop, that is a big question. And I like that they were introduced, but like everybody is saying, I think Heart of Thorns starting point, but we haven't really seen the fruition of it. So there are possibilities, and I wouldn't be surprised if we ever get some kind of guild versus guild or alliance versus alliance. I mean, that's a whole nother possibility. Leaderboards in the guild hall or something could be fun. I mean, there's a million like possible little things that you could put in there. But I mean, even just having some of the mining nodes, some of the experience buffs, some of the items you can pick up, it's nice, but there could be more.
I mean, that's ripe for the developing in the new expansion for sure. Oh, we've got a Jebro who's distracted.
I was just saying thank you for the host. Sorry. I'm just, I feel rude if I don't say thank you, but Valen, thank you for the raid. Because that was a lot of peeps, bro. I appreciate it as well.
Hello. Hey, everybody.
We're talking about Heart of Thorns right now. INKS was here. INKS was here, I'm sorry. He's not feeling too well. So he's had to bail, but it's all good. We'll get him on another one in future, I promise. Next one, probably. But yeah, I'm going to talk about that another day, I think, as well. But yeah, there's the Inception, cool, later on, and that's it. We'll just go on to the next thing. And I think, with specifically, like, I don't know, arenas, there's still definitely stuff that could be done there. I for some reason, I had in my head this weird horde mode thing, which I was like, what if you could compete with people like in your guild and like kill loads of mobs and just have this. There's so many possibilities. But I don't think, they're there yet with that. Maybe like Boots said and BirdofChess said something maybe in the future, hopefully. You never know.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to quickly the World v World map, and I don't know if BirdofChess you ever went in there. I know Boots definitely would have been in there a fair amount.
I have been in World versus World.
No, the newer map. The newer map. It's 5 years old. But...
It's the red borderland.
Yeah.
I think I've set foot on the maps, but I do not know much of anything about World versus World. I got a big cat, and I love my Warclaw, and that's about my level of experience. So Boots, you take this one. You take it away.
Sure, yeah. But may I suggest you go into World vs. World with your gang because it's a lot of fun.
I need to try it. I'm really interested in it, honestly. I think it's daunting to new players or like people who are new to the game mode, I should say. When you first get in and everybody's just like, they know the jam and you're in the corner just like, I found a cool tree, guys. Oh, that looks bad. What do I do to help you? Yeah. But anyway, you'll get into it, I'm sure, at some point.
But yeah, so the borderland, the desert borderland, which came in Heart of Thorns, has a history to it, right? It was given as a preview to all of the partners, all of the streamers and stuff before it released. And for the most part, I think we all kind of liked it. I think the people who actually did a lot of World versus World who tested it out said this is maybe a bit too big and hard to navigate to properly do World versus World.
It was like Heart of Thorns, but in World v World, like the actual maps. Like there was a lot, and there was a lot of PvE stuff as well.
Yeah,
but
at that time, it was a little bit too late to iterate on it.
Yeah.
So it got introduced into the game as is and replaced every single borderland at the same time. So no longer did you have the green and the blue borderland, which is the Alpine borderlands. That used to be the only borderland that existed, and they just replaced every single one of them with the desert borderland.
It wasn't going to come back either. There was going to be no rotation. It was the new borderlands. And it came in, and no one really liked it. and when I say no one really liked it, they did not like it at all. It was like, yeah.
Because it was too big. It was too big.
And world map. Yeah.
And it was too vertical for people to... Because you also didn't have gliding in World versus World at the time, and you also didn't have mounts in World versus World at that time. So think of playing a Heart of Thorns map as a PvP map where there's like a lot of, verticality, very, very, very difficult to go around, and also a lot of trees and stuff in certain areas or things blocking your view. You don't know where your enemy is, so you're looking as hard as you can for fights, but you can never find anyone to fight because they're just like so far away from you at the time.
The map
nightmare.
itself is beautiful. Like, it's a
Oh,
nice
yeah, it's
map,
gorgeous.
and there was some really nice ideas, and the keeps were cool, and the little mini bosses and the events and stuff. It was a lot of good stuff, but they could have just had it as a PvE map.
So now catch me up. Have they ever like adjusted this map and reintroduced it to the game?
It's in the
They
game. Still in there.
Oh, you were saying because you were saying earlier you should check it. Okay.
It's in rotation.
It's the red. No, it's not in rotation.
Is it not rotation?
It is always the red borderland.
Oh.
And is it the way it was when it was first released
Yes.
still, or really?
I thought they
Yeah.
were
Now with
rotating.
mounts and stuff, it seems like with mounts it would be, and gliding, like you were
It's a
saying,
little
it would
bit
be more
easier to get
manageable.
around now with mounts and gliding, but it was very difficult at the beginning. Still, it is still the least populated Borderlands whenever Will vs. World is happening.
Yeah, definitely.
Interesting. That
Yeah.
seems like it could be really, there's a lot of potential in the idea of like, how do we change up a landscape for a fight? And saying like, oh, if we have a lot of drop-offs or issues where maybe you can't, glide if that's a thing. Knockback becomes much more important. Like, how can I strategically position to catapult somebody off the edge of this? But if you're running into this issue where it's like, well, I can't really time sneak attacks because I don't really know where anybody's going to be. I can't really push them off because again, I may not run into anybody. And like not being able to quickly adjust or like to a call where somebody says, hey, we spotted someone here, and then you can cover that ground really quickly to get there. Like those seem to be the big issues. But if they, with mounts and things, if they were able to adjust that or like give some other incentive for it, it feels like that could be really fun and challenging, and maybe let stealth characters kind of shine a little more, or like those knockouts.
There's a lot of possibilities with it. It just didn't pan out, unfortunately. Obsidian comes up with something very important. It's true. There was actually an event in the center of the new map when it was first released, and it was like you had to claim a certain thing in the middle. I forget exactly what it is. Maybe somebody in the chat could
power or health. I can't remember. In some kind of way.
I don't remember how it worked exactly, and it doesn't really matter because it doesn't exist anymore. They did take that out. I don't know if it was because people weren't doing it or if because it was too powerful and annoying or something. But yeah, they took that out at least. They also, I don't know if this was before Heart of Thorns or after Heart of Thorns, the other Borderlands used to have a giant lake in the middle instead of the current rune system.
Oh, that was before. That was when they were trying to get rid of the underwater combat stuff. And then they added the small points to, I think that was after the first year and a half, 2 years maybe. Because, yeah, they had they raised, like pretty much raised things up, I guess, almost to a degree it felt like. But then because you had a point, I think a point was a point underwater? I can't remember. Maybe not, actually. But then they added the little 4 nodes, right, that gave you the actual extra boons and stuff. Yeah, that was a long time ago. That changed.
Full underwater world versus world map. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean that's what's coming with Canada, right?
That's what's coming. Oh, good lord, that would be scary.
But I mean, I was surprised actually that when Path of Fire came out, they didn't make a new Borderland. I guess they were scarred from the release of the first Borderland in Part of Thorns, that they were just like, we're not doing this ever again.
It was unfortunate. It was one of those things.
I feel like they could do it though. I feel like they could have one more Borderland. The green Borderland should be the Alpine Borderland. The red Borderland should be this desert Borderland, and the blue Borderland should be the Cantha Borderland.
It would be cool if they were different, because it would give your server a little bit more identity, I think, at the time in that matchup. But then it's about like fairness. Like if you haven't got the same Borderland in each, it's like balance, you know. It's like if you haven't got the same thing, it's weird. It's a weird. But if you switched it round enough and everyone got a go, it's just like, I don't know. Yeah, that's a longer conversation as well, I think. But let's go into the next thing, and that's since we're kind of on the whole PvP thing train, Stronghold, which was the new PvP game mode.
Can I don't even have anything, I don't have any input, but all I want to say is that on the outline, all that I see is Stronghold PvP, first and only oh dear. Letter. And that's it.
That's actually true. Okay, so when I do podcasts, I write a bunch of notes and I send it to these guys. I can actually prove it. And
You sent it to me 10 minutes before the podcast, so I was fully prepared for this podcast.
yeah, it was. Well, I mean, you're here, that's important.
That's all you need. But yeah, oh dear is true with Stronghold. Is it still in the game? I feel like it's still in the game.
Yeah, it's in the game.
Like you could still queue for it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. They had it in ranked for a long time. Do you remember that?
I know. About a month after it came out, I unchecked the box to queue for it when I had PvP.
I was gonna show you guys.
I don't know if.
So for those of us who, again, stumbled blindly into PvP or World versus World because we focus more on endgame PvE,
I'll give you the story.
lowdown. Give me the story.
So when the inception, the reason why Stronghold came in was because at the time and leading up to this, one the biggest esports really were things like Dota and League of Legends, MOBAs.
Yeah. That was the big one at the time.
Exactly, and that's where esports was. And then there was like CS:GO and stuff, but really League and Dota were like, League was probably more heard of and seen than anything else other than the international, probably for Dota. And there were loads of other MOBA clones coming out and everything else. So this was like how do we combine this with an esport potentially to launch it, to attract these kinds of people really, I guess, as well. Even though it's not a MOBA and it's an MMORPG. But to maybe bring something new. So basically you've got a lane each. So we know what MOBAs are, right? It's basically you've got lanes. You work your way down the lane, you kill the thing in the end. Whatever, the core. With this, the idea in Guild Wars 2 is that you work your way down the lane and you kill the Lord that is in the keep at the end. And there are 2 doors between you and that keep Lord that you have to, so you have to take them the doors, but they're not like World v World doors. You have to use mobs that are in your lane, like in a MOBA, that you send down to attack the tower. The tower is the door in this case. And you would have 2 mobs. One would be a script bomber. The other one would be, is it a Tengu archer? It's a Tengu archer. And you would have to kill them. Yes, and you would get heroes as well that you could channel buffs every so often that would pop up. Heroes from the past of in Guild Wars 1, and I think, you've got Tybalt as well, who's one of the heroes. And there's a what other heroes are there? Yeah, Tybalt's
People don't love this in Tybalt's in it.
And you can get armor for them and stuff as well, and like different armor looks, and there's a whole thing.
Right, though it's I forget how to unlock Tybalt.
It's through one.
I need to master this one PvP mode that nobody plays. So
people play it. It's still actually, people do actually play it. You can queue up and you probably get a queue pop in unranked pretty quick. Actually, to be fair.
Interesting.
Yeah, you can, and it's actually it's a beautiful map. Actually, it is fun. I actually still have fun in it every so often when I accidentally queue into it. But
so, what was the downside? Like, what about this just did not work within Guild Wars 2?
The reason why people didn't like it was a lot of it was the top end. Pro players didn't like it, and that filtered down quite heavily, but also because it was such a difference from Conquest and like the more skillful kind of Conquest rotational micro management of the game, and like thinking about that kind of stuff, that people just didn't connect with it at all. And because of that, because of the streaming and the opinions as well, and I'm not saying the mode is lacking in a lot of different ways, it is. And it was unfortunate that it did go the way it did. Like that, a lot of that opinion went down. If it's not cool and those guys ain't gonna like it, it ain't gonna be popular. Especially for a competitive term.
Yeah, it's also that like you need to have very different play styles in Conquest versus Stronghold, so you can't really queue for them at the same time. So you really got to choose one or the other. when you're queuing for games.
I see. Okay.
It's almost a
And
choice
people
you're
didn't choose
making.
Stronghold. People didn't choose Stronghold as a thing, yeah.
It was almost a choice that you had to make. It was right, and I think they thought that maybe they would bring World v World players in or a different kind of player in. We had an event when it first launched. I casted it on the Guild Wars 2 channel, and it was I had fun and I was hyped for it, but it just didn't work out. And it's just not as good as Conquest. It's not as fun. I mean, in terms of competitiveness, sorry, and that's just my opinion. In terms of competitiveness and skill and everything else, like you're playing, it's a different set of skills that you're using.
Did they ever do a ranked season?
They did
of
have ranked, yep.
Stronghold?
But it was mixed with Conquest, so people were farming rank off Stronghold.
Right.
And you could there were cheesy builds where you could just stealth things up to because you can stealth mobs, right, Rook? So like you can stealth all these bombers up to the wall. They would just spam bombs, and then you could heal them. So you were supporting these mobs as they ran through the lane, pushing the different gates, and then you get to the end boss, and you could rush it pretty much as well. So you can give them swiftness, give them quickness, give them everything else, healing, which was cool. I thought that was cool. Then that was a kind of interesting way, but it just didn't click with so many people and didn't really. There were different things about it which felt a bit higgledy-piggledy, is what I'm going to say.
I think the fact that it's PvP and it's a game mode where the optimal strat is to like not touch the other players and just go with your mobs to the door, and
it's a rush.
That makes sense, because some of the tension of like a MOBA lies in the fact that, like, while those mobs do play a role in the success that you might have, really it's more driven by the heroes themselves that like you're building skills off of and kitting, and then like the way that you are anticipating the reactions of the other side and like denying or supporting like your own pushes or denying their pushes to try and like take it over, as opposed to like an ad babysitting game, which here's the deal, like to me, because I do love doing support and I love doing healing and raiding and things like that, the idea of having something where like clever usage of like the ways that you are supporting or buffing or helping people, that's fun, because sometimes I don't necessarily want to go in and have it just be a DPS-a-thon, like I want to be able to do something that might creative skill in a different way, but I can how an audience that's already built around like your own skillful sort of execution and response within a fast-paced PvP environment would be like, what is this? Why I don't like it? Tybalt, good, stay, he good. Everything else very bad, don't want it. So I can see that now. I can see it.
Yeah. So there's Tybalt. I think Nika's in it. And the old assassin from Factions.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
Also, what's his name?
Remember his name.
The guy from Prophecies that you Oh,
that's
starts
so
with
funny.
a T or an O.
Enough, something like that almost sounds more fun to me. We're talking about Guildhall stuff, right? Something like that almost sounds more fun to me as like a PvE Guildhall mode that you could do or something.
Yes.
That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, no,
I don't know.
Would be.
You could like try to defend your keep or your hall, but then like have these lanes and support these characters, and like as a guild you could work together to try and unlock different characters that could like help support your defense lines. Like that would be super fun.
It's so interesting. So Heart of Thorns is crazy to me. So like it was
it's crazy. Let's go.
It was so important for the game, right?
Yeah.
Like for Guild Wars 2 to survive as an MMO, Heart of Thorns had to be so good. It was good. And so that's why we still have Guild Wars 2. But there were missteps. And those missteps, I feel like because of the reaction that we had to them, have kind of like rested in the psyche of the Guild Wars 2 developers for so long. Like because of Stronghold not doing well, we did not get any new PvP game modes for a very, very long time.
And still won't. Probably.
Other
than 2v2, but that's. I mean, we kind of had that. We kind of had it. We already had a 5v5. It's just deathmatch. It's not really it is a different mode, and there are different maps. It's definitely easier to incorporate, and they've put it between different seasons as well.
Yeah.
Which is good. Like they've done it well. They've done it very well. Again, probably another conversation. But like if they had maybe had a off season with Stronghold in between, it may have worked a bit better.
That's true.
But they didn't do that, and I think it's just because they didn't. There was a lot of people against it, really, to be fair.
And that's why. So a lot of the criticisms people have for Path of Fire, I feel, are things about Path of Fire that are only about Path of Fire because they were reactions to what happened with Heart of Thorns. So like, a lot of people complained about how grindy Heart of Thorns was, even though a lot of people love the grindiness of it, and they reacted to it. And Path of Fire was a lot less grindy. Path of Fire was also like it had less things to come out with it, but the things that came out with it were really good. So like, while Heart of Thorns had so many features added to it in the game, you had the Stronghold, you had the PvP, the World versus World map, you had all the elite specs, a new class, the legendary weapons, the legendary armor. I don't know if it was tied to Heart of Thorns or not. I'm not sure. I forget now.
I mean, it raids like part of Thorns, so you could technically say that they are.
Yeah. So Path of Fire was like a stripped down expansion in a way, because they got rid of all the things that didn't go over that well in Heart of Thorns, but concentrated on making the things that they put into it very good.
And also, it wasn't like that bad as well. Like, cut away that stuff, there's still like a lot left.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I mean, in any game, there have to be. It's always funny to me that it seems like player bases have trouble with this sometimes. And I know we all do as players, right? There will always be some missteps in any game. There's no such thing as like a perfect, flawless game. And especially in MMOs, where so much of it really depends on the reception of the player base and the trends of like what's happening in an MMO. I think you do need to take some risks and you do need to try some things. And sometimes they fail, and that doesn't mean that it's bad. I mean, gosh, in like Final Fantasy XIV, for example, we just had a piece of content that has been re-released for the third time because it flopped so hard the first 2 times it was released in the game. And people sometimes, like, I don't know, assume that because something has been introduced that wasn't received well, that it is a way to like judge the entire game. And I think that Path of Fire did feel a little bit more cautious, and I think you are hitting the nail on the head, Boots, because of that. But yes, what they did was really good and solid and released well. But I think we're starting to see them lay the groundwork to take some more risks again. And Heart of Thorns did some really wonderful, I mean, like really good, worthwhile creative risks in the MMO space. Talking about the maps and how much, they're challenging, but also interesting and sure punishing. And there were, critiques, but there's so much good stuff there. The metas, all the things that we were praising earlier. I think like coming into this next expansion, even with them rebalancing a lot of stuff with PvP or kind of working out and solidifying certain things or trying to really get certain things in place and new content types in place with the new living season, it makes me really hopeful that with this next X pack, we are going to see that next push forward. And I'm sure that there will be probably some missteps, but it's worth it if the game pushes forward. And Heart of Thorns did that, and it did push us forward to Path of Fire, and it's worth it. Like, it's worth it.
You have to, that's like life, right? You have to, I'll give you some life advice, everyone. Listen to this. You cannot live your life fully unless you make mistakes and you do not grow from those mistakes. That is life. That is the truth. And Heart of Thorns had loads of growth, literally. I mean, look at that. Hey, ba-doon-ching. I had to round it off a little bit with a bad joke because I got a bit serious. But seriously, like that is the way things can evolve. I think like some of the best experiences from games recently have been from games that have kind of flopped and come back, and that's Sea of Thieves is a massive, massive game that did that. Elder Scrolls Online, wow. That launch, and there are people in the ESO community, I love them, but they're wrong about their opinion about that game launch being good. It was so fucked up. It was bad.
76 too, right? That's
Full on
one
76, yes. Awful at launch. Now awesome again. This is how some of these games like come back. and they're able to. And if you can make Guild Wars 2 was epic on launch, one of the best games, one of the most hyped games I've ever played at launch. I was excited like a small child. My first Christmas that I can ever remember. Like it's everyone remembers that first Christmas, the first Christmas they remember. They're like there, like just jumping up and down on the carers' beds, and they're like, I need to go open those presents. 4 a.m. Shut the fuck up. And, and then, do you know what I mean? That excitement the first day of Guild Wars 2 was immense. And, I think Heart of Thorns was damn good, generally. And hopefully, like BirdofChess says, and I think kind of in a way, but Boots is saying as well, these mistakes aren't giant mistakes that have messed up the game for the future. I think, Stronghold is a PvP mode. It came out, didn't matter. We still had Pro League. We still had all these big things that came out of it. World v World, they just went back to the core maps. They brought out Warclaw. They brought up some other bits and pieces. Yeah, sure, it's not been a lot. Maybe there could have been more work there. Maybe there will be with this expansion. We'll see. But the core of it, the raids have still been going. Yeah, again, there's arguments about like slow content releases for that. I don't know. I don't feel like the game is going anywhere anytime soon. And then they release, especially because we know there's an expansion coming out. So, and with the amount of time it takes for them to get an expansion out as well, because all the content is coming out between, this is going to be next year, late next year. This is going to come out, or we're even going to start to get info. I mean, they've got their future eyes set on Guild Wars 2, so they can't be doing that bad, right? I mean, they definitely can't be. I think I'm trying to get to some kind of conclusion here because half an hour's up. That's why I'm trying to do a big ramble at the end.
I see the path you're taking. It kind of looks like this. It's over there now, somewhere.
It's like Tangled Depths.
Exactly.
I agree. And there's loads more we could talk about Heart of Thorns. But if there's all right, just as an end thing, because we're going to kind of end out, and there is loads more we can talk about, and elite specs, specifics of those, what our favorites were. There was so much that we could talk about. If there was one thing that you enjoyed the most from Heart of Thorns, whether or not Rook's played it recently, obviously Boots played it since launch. What was the one thing that you enjoyed the most from Heart of Thorns? And Boots, you go first.
I mean, it had to be gliding, right? It kind of just. It changed the game at the time. Like now mounts are just like better, but gliding was the thing at the time.
Yeah, I think it'd have to be the thing that I disliked the most at the beginning that I was saying I came around on. I do really like the maps. And I never thought that I would be in the position to say that after dying to them so much. I mean, the Masteries, we talked about like gliding, obviously, and the idea and potential of Mastery system, I think, is fantastic. So I'm really, really glad that happened. But I do really love the intricacy and the detail and the care and the metas and like the stuff that makes up the meat of Heart of Thorns. And while, like we said, there are some tweaks there because there were some things that are very difficult and there are some things that make it, frustrating. I do think that I would love to see them carry forward with that kind of drive to create an environment that really immerses us and really captures us and gives us something to dig into. And that really shows what I think the team does well.
Nice. It's a good rounding up as well. Good stuff.
What about you?
I was about to answer. I'm not sure. I'm not sure actually. I would say that actually raids, oddly enough.
No, fair enough.
Because they did bring me. They brought me a new gameplay style, I suppose, as well as like something else to stream that I did enjoy for a long time, and that I.
Can I change?
Can you change your answer? Sure.
Yeah, raids too. Yeah, raids are good.
I was gonna say at least.
Can I change my answer?
Sure.
It's raids, yeah. Raids.
Amazing. So we enjoy raids. But it changed a lot of. It changed the entire game. It was the most influential. I think other than gliders, which and the map kind of. There's so much influential stuff. I think raids honestly increase the length of the game for everyone, and I don't mean in terms of access, but even the knowledge that you can go and raid was an idea that you can get this next thing, or you can go and access this content, which I might be able to do one day, and has that traditional MMO end game content that is like there. And I think it brought it into the full MMO-ness that like BirdofChess was saying really early in the beginning of the stream.
Just to bring it full circle, it gave us endgame PvE that doesn't suck.
There you go. All right. Well done. And on that note, I think we're going to end. I'm going to give a shout out to INKS, who was here at the beginning. Twitch.tv/ I think it's MMOINKS still. I will put an updated link into the description. I hope he's feeling well. And also thanks for him coming in as well. He's on, if you search INKS GW2 in Twitter, you can find him there, I'm pretty sure as well. I can't remember what his Twitter is specifically. Oh, it is at @MO_INKS. So go and follow him there. And yeah, I'm going to put all the other information. It should be MMOINKS on twitch.tv as well. Boots, tell us what you do. Where can we find you if you want to be found?
World of Enders on YouTube, and I make some videos there every once in a while. Come check it out.
There you go.
Guild Wars 2 usually videos.
Sweet. Thank you for coming on today as well, dude. Appreciate it massively. Legend. And BirdofChess. Tell us the things.
Yes. I stream on Twitch. Twitch.tv/BirdofChess. You can also find me on Twitter and Instagram at BirdofChess, so it's consistent across the board. And like I said, we do a lot of stuff also through our Discord community, coordinating guild events and FC events in a variety of different MMOs that we play. So we'd always love to see you.
Awesomeness. So all this stuff is going to be in the description below. If you are listening to this on Anchor.fm as well, /the Lightbringers or /Jebro, because there's different podcasts and different one. Thank you very much for listening. And if you want to support the podcast, there is a place where you can do that on the actual site. This is also on Spotify, iTunes, Google, anywhere where you're listening to this and you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much. I am Jebro. I produce this every 2 to 3 weeks ish. Just depending on what's going on in life. So I appreciate it very much. Twitch.tv/JebroUnity. And that is the same on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, everything that I'm on. That will be my name. So go in there and have a look. I'm a full-time broadcaster doing this kind of stuff and going to school. So if you want to come and say hello, come and do it. We talk about things and stuff, and big mental health advocate as well as training to be one. And that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you so much for watching and listening. We'll be back in about 2 or 3 weeks with this. And yeah, cheers. See you next time. Mini silence stream gonna be back. It was just a little outro for the thing. We're gonna go and say goodbye to each other, and then I'm gonna be back with a stream. We're gonna do some Guild Wars 2 PvP for about 2.5 hours for the end of the day. I will be back. These guys will not be. So say thank you for them, to them for coming on, because it's very good.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
You're very welcome. You're good peeps. All right.
Have fun in PvP.
Will do. It's gonna slay some.
And you have fun in World vs. World.
Yes. Do well.
Yeah, I'm going right in right now.
Do it. Another stream. All right. I'll be right back, peeps.